Good evening. Today is April 11th. Welcome to the Township Committee meeting of the Township of Chatham. Now I'm calling this meeting to order. Greg, adequate notice was given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given by the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 4th, 2019. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 4th, 2019, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 4th, 2019.
Great, thank you. And now the Chatham High School freshman, Madeline Boland, will lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Greg, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Here.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Here.
Mr. Ritter?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Here.
Mayor Selin?
Here. Thank you, and we're moving on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? The agenda is approved as is. Thank you.
Are all lights on, please?
Okay, that's right.
That's an extra one for the Board of Ed. So whichever one you choose.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we're going to continue with the reports. And let's start with Kurt. Any reports?
No report.
No reports, okay.
We're not doing the proclamation first?
Oh my God, yes, we do. Yes, we have to. I'm sorry. Still getting used to this. Yeah, and we have a proclamation that I will read it to you that has to do with the Local Government Week, and the proclamation goes as follows. Whereas local government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. And whereas local government provides services and programs that enhance the quality of life for residents, making their municipality their home. And whereas local government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas local government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along the understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas New Jersey Local Government Week offers an important opportunity for elected officials and local government staff to spread the word to all citizens of New Jersey that they can shape and influence this level of government, and whereas the New Jersey State League of Municipalities and its member municipalities have joined together to teach citizens about municipal government through a variety of activities. Now, therefore, I, Typhoon Selen, Mayor of the Township of Chatham, proclaim as follows. Section 1, that the Township of Chatham encourages all citizens, local government officials, and employees to participate in events that recognize and celebrate New Jersey Local Government Week, which is this week, the week of April 7th through 13th. Section 2, that the Township of Chatham encourages educational partnerships between local government, schools, community colleges, other institutions of higher education, as well as civic groups of organizations to ensure that all citizens understand their rights and responsibilities so that they are able to participate in our democratic republic. Section 3, that the Township of Chatham supports and encourages all New Jersey local governments to actively promote and sponsor New Jersey Local Government Week so that civic engagement and participation in government which was the key tenet of our Constitution, and the reason that 243 years ago our founding fathers sought to form a more perfect union, remains as true today in the 21st century as it was back on the Morristown Green in 1779. Thank you. Okay. So now the reports. Back to reports. Kurt, no reports, you said.
Still nothing to say.
Okay. All right. All right, Karen?
Yes, I have a couple of different things to offer. First of all, regarding our local and wonderful fire companies, we have our Easter egg extravaganza being held on Sunday by the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department at the at the Southern Boulevard Firehouse. The Easter egg hunt will begin at, I'm just trying to find my notes. Here we go. I don't want to get it wrong. The Easter Bunny arrives by fire truck at 1:30 p.m. on Sunday, and once again, that is the Southern Boulevard Firehouse. There will be a 50-50 raffle, fire prevention tips, exploration of the fire trucks, and more info about how to volunteer with the department as a firefighter or as an associate. We invite everybody to gather between 1 and 4 on Sunday, and we'll help celebrate the season with age-specific egg hunts. So we'll have some for the little ones and some for the older kids. We'll have face painting, bunny photo ops, delicious foods and drink. So please don't miss it. That's Sunday at the Southern Boulevard Firehouse with our Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department.
This Sunday, right?
This Sunday, the 14th. Okay. Thank you. Yes. But before that, this Saturday, the 13th, our Green Village Fire Company and Auxiliary are hosting a paper shredding event. That is going to be at the Green Village Firehouse, rain or shine, 9 till noon, and that is, once again, Saturday, April 13th. They urge you to bring personal and business documents, maybe the things you've already cleaned out, having done your taxes ahead of time, to help avoid identity theft, protect the environment, because all shredded paper will be baled and recycled into other paper products. The cost is $5 per box or brown paper grocery bag. Larger containers will be priced accordingly. No newspapers, magazines, books, binders, etc. There's more information on the Green Village Fire Department website. So that is the Green Village Auxiliary running a great fundraiser Saturday from 9 to noon. Of interest, where it comes to our wonderful friends at the Green Village Fire Company and their auxiliary, an anonymous source has pointed out to me that our local Girl Scouts have raised money for nearly 200 boxes of Girl Scout cookies to be sent to our troops in Afghanistan. And that is such a great effort. It speaks so highly of our Girl Scouts. It speaks so highly of our dedication to our troops overseas, to our community members who are serving, and to the dedication of our fire company and the auxiliary in Green Village. The postage for those nearly 200 boxes of cookies was paid for by the Green Village Fire Department and Auxiliary. So that's a lot of postage. That's a lot of Girl Scout cookies. We're so proud of them. We're so proud of our men and women from our community who are serving. Moving on to utility work, we did, of course, get a recap of our PSE&G visit to the right-of-way that crosses from Fairmount down into Stonewick. They did apologize, as I think we already know, for not having noticed residents ahead of time. Their plan going forward is to manage the culvert under the roadway. The PSE and vegetation management will clear vegetation from the ditches on the side of the right-of-way where it is within the transmission corridor. Brush will be removed from the culvert before the end of April. Crews will be returning in October to complete the tree removal in this span, which was delayed due to environmental restrictions. There is still work going on up there. The restoration of the area where trees were removed south of Fairmount and Sunset, restoration will occur before the end of April as planned. This includes additional cleanup, seeding with wildflower and meadow grass seed mixes to augment the existing seed bank and natural vegetation. Future vegetation management of the corridor will be in keeping with PSE&G Transmission Vegetation Management Plan for overhead lines. And once again, you know, it can't be said often enough that PSE&G is operating under the Federal Energy Regulation System, and they are under federal obligation, therefore, to keep those rights-of-way clear of any hazards so as to ensure reliability of the grid. I know right out of the blocks, we had, in 2018, we had major power outages throughout the state. I don't think anybody can forget the power outages that went on for days and days. Kurt, I know during your tenure as mayor, you attended a meeting with the governor regarding the reliability of the grid. And I believe that the governor gave the utilities and municipalities, maybe not carte blanche, but certainly gave them a lot of latitude to ensure that trees were not going to take down our wires where the utility companies could prevent it. So it's a double-edged sword. Nobody wants to be without power for 10 days, and nobody wants to be missing their beautiful trees. But unfortunately, that's that. That is from both the governor and federal energy regulation. And in addition to trees and power lines, we did see some additional press on the matter of the hemlock trees adjacent to Cougar Field in the 300 block of Shunpike. We did hear from JCP&L earlier. As you all know, we did hear also from the Board of Chosen Freeholders in our March 14th meeting. I did report on the fact that those hemlock trees had been cut down. The trees themselves were considered a liability in many situations. The freeholders reported that they were, in fact, hollow in many places and presented a danger. The sidewalk has been a source of fear and trepidation for many who go there for quite some time. I myself walk there, not always in the bright of day, but sometimes in the early morning hours. And it's treacherous. It can be muddy, slippery, etc. I know the Board of Ed has received many concerned phone calls on that matter. So in order to repair the sidewalk, they requested that those trees be removed. So I know that some additional matter had been made of that in the recent past. So I did want to let you know that we were ahead of the game when it came to the information on that matter, and we were in touch with both the County Board of Freeholders, with our own DPW, and of course JCP&L. So I believe that does it for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen. Anything, Tracy?
Of course. We had our work day, cleanup day on Saturday, and I have a write-up. It was actually kind of a nice day out there. It's the 17th annual Open Space Work Day. Families, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, clubs, youth groups, outdoor enthusiasts were all present. There was about 35 or so intrepid individuals going through the brush and taking out all sorts of matter. We found a crankshaft and a something from an old car that was there. That was very interesting. And airplane bottles seemed to be quite popular. So they were very difficult to get out of the brush. The Chatham High School Students Key Club spread chips out in the area. Dan was there from the Environmental Commission. Most of the people from the Environmental Commission was there. Typhoon, Mike. We found some interesting things. There was about 15 bags of trash, along with some old farm equipment as well, was taken out of there. And we want to thank the sponsors, Chatham Disposal, which donated the collection of the trash bags, Chatham ShopRite, which donated the work gloves and supplies, the Department of Public Works, which donated 3 cubic yards of wood chips and rakes that were loaned, wheelbarrows, and shovels. So thank you very much for the Environmental Commission for continuing to put this on. The tree seedling giveaway will be on April 27th from 9 to 1 at the Tanglewood Recycling Area. These are free trees. So come on out and get some. It was very successful. We had a line of cars last year coming through. And there's instructions on how to plant and how to take care of them. So please mark that on your calendars for April 27th. It was very successful last year. And continuing on with the Environmental Commission, We were informed by the MUA that they are going to start a tag it and leave it program, an inspection program this summer in municipalities that have all-in-one single-stream curbside recycling. I think we all know that now we don't have anywhere to send a lot of our recyclables, and so they're cracking down on different types of recyclables, things that should really go into the trash instead of going into recycling. It's pretty specific. Some of the things that we all thought we were recycling, that we were doing a good job, is really supposed to go into the trash. So it can be a little confusing. We have up on our website and on the Township Committee Municipal Facebook site a flyer that you can download, print out, take a look at, that has to do with all the different types of things that are either trash or go into recycling, or it has to be clean, so you can't throw out your spaghetti jar with all the remaining spaghetti stuff in it. You have to clean it out. And we posted a lot of information, including links to the MUA about the Tag It program up on the website and on the Facebook page. So I would encourage you all to take a look at it because they will be going through your recyclables. And if they find things that they are not going to be able to recycle, and that's going to cost money to recycle, they will leave it for you, not out of spite, but as a form of education. It's going to take some getting used to, but that's that. And on a sad note, a very good friend of mine, Paul Anello, will be retiring from the Joint Rec Advisory Committee. Paul has been instrumental in the founding of the Chatham Athletic Foundation. He was a past president of the Chatham Athletic Boosters, and he has been on the Rec Advisory Committee for many years. I think he's been expressing his desire to retire for the past 3 or 4 years, but now that his kids are firmly in college, one has graduated, he's now calling it quits. So the Rec Advisory Committee currently meets quarterly, and they discuss issues related to club teams, the club team program that we have, provide input on those club teams. So if anyone has interest in becoming a member of the Joint Rec Advisory Committee, please send in a leadership form. Those forms are available on our website. They're not available on our website? No? You can contact, can we put it up on the website?
I would suggest people reach out to me or a Township Committee member.
All right. You can reach out to Greg, or you can reach out to a Township Committee member for the leadership form. All are welcome to apply. So as Paul gets to leave, as soon as we find a replacement for him. He's very motivated to do so at this point. And that's it.
Great.
Could I have a point of clarification, Bob, as it relates to recycling? I know we saw in the TAP, it was reported that the borough, as I guess was charged like $10,000, I think it was, for the recycling issues or whatever the case might be. And you did an envelope, kind of back of the envelope analysis in terms of what our additional expenses are regarding to recycling?
The answer is yes. The borough, I believe they were being charged, or their increased charges are at least 15,000, because the swing is 45,000 between 2018 and 2019. As a point of information for the Township Committee, in 2019, the Chatham Township will be paying $29,000 and change for fees that were incurred, recycling fees that were incurred in 2018 that the MUA has billed, and we were able to pay that in 2019. We are projecting that our recycling costs will increase to between $40,000 and $50,000. What I'll do is I'll take a look at the budget analysis and I'll send it out to the Township Committee tomorrow morning, so that you'll all have that information. But you know, that's one of the things that's happened since last May, when China started to not accept recycling from the United States and also from Europe. So the contamination rate is less than 0.5% per ton. So,
So this is truly a money-losing endeavor for the township at this point.
It has been for a while.
But even-
It's
Yeah,
always been a
well,
cost to us,
yeah,
beyond
there's-
any
But
revenue.
not
Yeah.
to this extent.
No, this extent is,
well, that's correct, because recycling in the past had been a commodity. So you'd lose money on some, but you'd make money on others. But right now, yes, because there's no market for it. It's being stockpiled here in the United States. There's no market offshore for it. So it's, the options are, we have to have clean recycling, and we're gonna have recycling. It's gonna wind up going into a landfill, because those are the two alternatives. And
well, the contamination just adds insult to injury, and it's not a lot, like you said, 1% or something like that.
It's 1/2.
Right, but it's staggering to me that people continue to not recycle properly. When you drive by and see plastic bags in people's recycling, the rules are so available and so specific that for people to be putting out things that anybody who's read the website would know are not appropriate for recycling. Pizza box with pizza in them, peanut butter jars with peanut butter in them. These are things that we should not be putting in our recycling. The idea that the MUA has been given the capability to tag and fine and leave behind is not new. They have always had that. They've always had that capability, and these are the men on the road who are out there picking up the recycling for us every other week. They've just decided that they're not going to be bearing the brunt of the contamination any longer. They're just going to leave it there.
Well, I think it's given the changes that you pointed out.
Sure, they're going to
The
pass
face of
those savings on to
recycling
us.
is changing, and now they're going to try and cut back on, I think some of the confusion goes around the single stream recycling. But even in reading the difference between a 5-ounce yogurt container versus an 8-ounce yogurt container, you can recycle the 8-ounce yogurt container, but you can't recycle the 4-ounce yogurt container. So it's very
right.
specific. So
Yeah.
you really have to take some time to look at the new information and to read it, because they're just not going. They can't accept it anymore.
They'll leave it, and they can fine you, and they can do those things. So it's
Bob?
affecting us badly both ways.
Yeah, there's, what we're going to wind up doing over the summers, we're going to have to do an analysis, because there's, the cost will continue to go up, and we will provide the Township Committee with some options. And one of the options is going to be, to change recycling, but we will have to also take a look at dual stream, because there are some of our sister communities that have done some analysis, and they've switched from single stream to dual stream, and we will follow whether they're successful or whether they're not as successful as they thought with reducing their recycling costs. But that'll be that, or there'll have to be some consideration for other, how do we go about recycling in the future?
And do we know, I know that MUA can police the residential pickup as they're picking up individually, but when people go down to Tanglewood, I mean, people are just dumping stuff in those dumpsters willy-nilly. I mean, no one's really policing that per se. There's a DPW person down there, but I don't know that they're monitoring as the product is being dumped into the dumpster. I mean, in this analysis, perhaps we should consider, one, how much of that stuff is being contaminated, it's contaminated materials being dumped in there, or two, if it makes sense, if that's becoming the main factor where we're losing our money, just close the thing entirely.
I mean, that's something that we'll look at, but one of the other things that we will also look at is the types of containers that we have there. So should we have tops on the containers? There are some communities that have cameras so that they can see who's dumping after hours, and some communities have also put fences around there so that it's easier to monitor what's happening, what's going into the recycling bins. But those are some of the things. When I was down there seemed to be we have areas for recycling, but we also had a lot of water waiting there because.
Well, the roll-offs don't have covers. The 30-yard roll-offs don't have covers.
That's correct, but there are some newer roll-offs that do have covers. So those are some of the things that we will look at and get costs, and it's worth a couple of trips to other other municipalities to see how they've laid out their recycling centers, what they've done to protect it. But I visited 2 or 3 so far that basically everything has containers on them, and there's one municipality that put basically roofs over the tops of it as
So that it doesn't
extra
get
protection,
wet.
because last year we had 20 or 24 more inches of rain than the year before, so that affected the water weight affected the newspaper and cardboard, it contaminated it, and there was less money that you could
Right.
make from it.
But at the end of the day, recycling in and of itself has become kind of an albatross when it comes to any rate of return. We're doing it because it feels good, not because it's financially good for anybody. Anything that's made of plastic is so cheap to buy brand new that they don't need to recycle used plastic for things. The glass is so heavy that it might just get ground up and put in a landfill anyway. There's no market for what we're collecting in the first place, which is why it's an albatross. We're not, all we're doing is paying money so that we can feel good.
Yeah, perhaps, and recycling is cyclical, and we're gonna have to make some adjustments. What you say is accurate. When you take a look at a water bottle, I don't know if anybody, that's what I was just looking at to see if anybody has a water bottle. When you feel the weight of that water bottle, the only thing that can be recycled right now from that water bottle is the cap. Because when you feel a water bottle, there's no substance to it,
But we
Well,
can't
4 or 5
recycle the
years.
cap because it's too small and it'll clog the machines.
Is it
So
okay to drink it?
It goes right in the garbage. And I just bring my own so that I can use it over and over and over again and don't even throw it away.
Yeah, and this leads to a bigger conversation
Yeah.
about what are the forms of recycling. There's, conservation is a form of recycling. You're bringing a reusable container with water in it. That's a form of recycling. So we need to get away from plastic and
Reduce
other
and
things.
reuse.
All right. You know what? Great
So,
conversation,
We are going to have an analysis
Yes.
done on this?
great discussion.
Yes, we will, but it will not be soon. This is going to be one of our summer projects,
Yeah.
because we're going to be focused on 2020 with the costs for this, and we need to talk to our partners at the county about it, and we need to look around and see what are some of the other trends. But right now people are storing recycling. They're storing it for a certain period of time, and then it winds up going into a landfill. So. You have to look at the whole thing. We're going to have some difficult conversations, because what's the right thing to do? What's the cost-effective thing to do? And ultimately, the right thing to do is to reduce the consumption. So everybody should be bringing their own water.
Well, if we had made any knee-jerk reactions at one point in time over the last number of years, we would have gone to weekly recycling, and that would have doubled our burden that we owe back to the county, right? So if we're not going to do anything knee-jerk, right?
I can't comment because I'm not familiar with what the contract is with Morris County Recycling, but if we were dual stream, I don't know about that.
Maybe, right.
All
Or
right.
maybe that's an idea.
So let's go back to
Thank you, Bob.
reports. We have Mike?
Thank you.
Do you have any reports?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. From the Communications Committee, I'd like to point out that number 9 under the consent agenda tonight, we are renewing our contract with City Connections, which is supports us and maintains our Chatham Township website. That is chathamtownship-nj.gov. We're also looking as a Communications Committee to review the design of the website, nothing major, but just to make sure that it meets our needs currently, so people can look to see some changes on that in the months ahead. And then also, just a heads up to people, is that 2019 is actually the year that we renew our franchise contract with Comcast Cablevision. It was 15 years ago that they came into the township and had their first franchise agreement. So in the coming month or two, we will be having a public hearing, and we're asking people to give us some feedback on their experience, so that as we enter into negotiations with Comcast, we can talk intelligently with them. So just a little advance word on that, and more specifics to come. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. John? Anything? Any report? Nothing? Okay. Bob, anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Several items. The first item that I wanted to report on is I wanted to expound on the announcement that we had previously that the Township of Chatham received a AAA credit rating from Moody's. So we received that earlier this week, and that just reaffirms the sound fiscal management practices and the sound overall management practices that this municipality has had for the last several years. A municipality does not receive a AAA credit rating unless several factors, both objective and subjective, are met. And I'm very pleased to say that the township has met all of those criterias. The township received a AAA credit rating probably in 2016, and it was reaffirmed just this past Tuesday. Why is this important to the township? Why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because there are less than 5% of the municipalities in the state of New Jersey that have a AAA credit rating. That's the highest credit rating that a municipality can obtain. And it's important because when Chatham goes out into the market to borrow, it means that our cost, the interest that we're going to pay, is going to be less than a municipality that doesn't have as good a credit rating as the township. So that means that as a municipality, we do not have to pay as much for some of our future obligations, and each resident, it means that the cost for each resident will be less for each of the long-term items that we wind up bonding for. So in the future, we're going to be purchasing 2 pieces of equipment for the fire department. Those are necessary purchases, but the cost for that equipment will be less for each taxpayer, and it will be less for the municipality overall. So that's one of the ways that we are able to manage long-term debt, and we are able to manage the hidden costs of government. We're able to keep the costs as low as possible, but it's a continuous effort. It's something that requires teamwork. It's something that requires a long-term commitment, and that's what the township has had. That's what this township committee has had for 2019, and past committees in 2018, 2017, 2016, and even a little before. So when you think about this, it's a relay race. So the baton has been handed off. We've been able to do this, and we've been able to do it seamlessly, but there's been a lot of people that have been involved in this, and this is just one of the things that, as we celebrate Local Government Week, just keep in the back of your mind that we're very fortunate to live and work in Chatham right now.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruz, anything?
No, but I'm not finished, Mayor.
Oh!
He said a couple of
I just
things.
realized I had to get off my soapbox
I
about the
have a place to
AAA
go.
credit
Come on.
rating. So now that I'm off my soapbox, let's talk about the second most important thing to people. The third is sleep, and our township clerk will talk about that later. But the second most important thing for people is food. So tomorrow, we are going to be releasing an RFP, which is a request for proposal for the concession stand at the Colony Pool. So we are looking to open the bids on Thursday, May 2nd for the Colony Pool, and we are looking for proposals for 2 years because we know that it takes, you can track your costs better if it's for 2 years instead of 1 year. So if there are people that are interested, if there's a deli that's interested, a restaurant, we would like you to pick up one of our RFPs. The concession stand will be open at the Colony Pool for 101 days this summer. So it'll be open from Saturday, May 25th through Labor Day, which is September 2nd. There'll be all sorts of things on the menu. After much consideration, we decided that we would not put lobster Newburg on the menu because that might be a little above the price points, but we'd like people to come use our Colony Pool, but also if you're interested in serving food there, give our RFP a look and then make a bid for it. So that's something that's coming up. Also this month, it's Community College Month. So on Tuesday, I visited the Community College of Morris, and I had the opportunity to speak with the presidents of the school and some of the deans, and I made a pitch for some partnerships with them, internships, and specific programs where we would be able to have internships, but also technical internships, and create a win-win situation in this area of Morris County with the Community College of Morris. So those are, that's something that I'm looking forward to investigating as well. We talked about recycling before, and we talked about the specifics of recycling, but our contract expires at the end of the year for recycling. So that's one of the reasons why we're starting the analysis over the summer. And I neglected to point that out. So that was the catalyst for looking at that. Also on our website, we will be posting notices about summer employment with our DPW for summer jobs for some of our students. Also, the Colony Pool we will be interviewing for some positions for the Colony Pool, and we just wanted anybody that's in high school or college to consider looking on our website for employment opportunities. So that's my report, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Speaking of Colony, do we have an update on camp enrollment? I think we're coming, what is the deadline is the 22nd of April, I think?
It's Friday the 24th.
Okay.
At the end of the day, realistically, the decision would be made on that Tuesday because it was the close of business on Friday. I had emailed out to the Township Committee, I guess the count for people that
Right.
And I
Nothing changed?
I didn't check it. I
Okay.
was working on some other things.
Good.
But I'll send out an email to the Township Committee, perhaps tomorrow or Monday
Great.
on the latest on that.
Okay. I know you don't have anything. Okay. So, all right. So I have three quick things. Number one, I too joined the environmental cleanup last weekend. It was fun and a lot of work, a lot of people. And I see Dan, he was there, and Tracy was there, Mike was there, obviously. And kudos to Dot Stillinger, who's the chair of our Environmental Commission, and all the Environmental Commission members for doing this event. And that's
Bless
one.
you.
God bless you. Number two, I want to also mention the AAA rating that we received, update from Moody's on Tuesday. Kudos to former mayors, former committee members, former administrators, former, I won't say clerks, but many employees of the township and all the stakeholders. This is great, and this is a testament of the fiscal responsibility of this great body and for all the good work that we do for this beautiful town. And I just wanted to relate to, simplify this. And if you have a credit score, that the credit scores are 300 to 850, right? So as a person, you have a credit score, you could have 850. So this is like, if you have a credit score of 840, you're the human version of Chatham Township. So think of that way. So, it's not many people out there. So that's that, and great job. Colony Pool, I have heard that, the enrollment started, and it's a wonderful thing. I don't know if you can show this. There's a great flyer here from last few years ago, and we will reuse this and this is what you, I think, came up with, or somebody. Okay, so this is great, and we can use this, reuse this, and that's going to be great. And if you haven't enrolled to Colony Pool, please do so. Prices are great, facility is great, and Township Committee is looking forward for you to enroll and have a great summer. And
the food will be great there too.
Food will be great, and food will be great.
And thanks to Bob for finding the leftover box, because that will actually save us money, since we don't have much of a budget.
Yep.
So.
Okay. I hope we don't generate a lot of recyclables.
Well, full disclosure, it was Erin that found it and brought it to my attention.
Oh, it was a good find.
It was a good find.
All right, so we have to move forward. We have a large agenda here. We have a lot to go over. And now it's time for hearing of citizens and petitions. And this is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight, to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. If anyone would like to come forward.
I'm going to read my comments as our new administrator told me he's very firm on the 3 minutes.
Would you,
Yes, my name is Christine Baird, and I live at 375 Fairmount Avenue. And I just wanted to thank everybody who supported the sidewalk that's going to be going up on the west side, hopefully. And I hope that we can go forward with it, even though the grant amount isn't the same as we had asked for. It's a little bit less. This sidewalk will help kids walking to school. My son walks every day down to the middle school. And, you're nervous them walking. It's a very busy street. I see commuters walking. I talk to people going to the train, and they don't think it's too far of a walk. So it'll be a big help to that, and people like myself who walk recreationally. And I think it'll even help the museum traffic because, it's difficult to get over to the Red Brick Schoolhouse Museum. And we have a neighbor who has Down syndrome, and his dad takes him for a walk every weekend. And to see them running across Fairmount Avenue, and then there's no sidewalk once they get over there. And I don't know what's going to happen with the church. It seemed like maybe things were going on zoning-wise, so we use that driveway a lot to get through. So a sidewalk will be a big help. And I also hope that plans for that north side of Southern sidewalk goes through as well. And then finally, that intersection, the 5-way intersection, if there's any way, to make it crossable, or at least to alert drivers that there's the potential of people crossing, because we do have one crosswalk there, and a school bus stops at Buxton. Kids get off that bus on that little island at Buxton and have to run across Fairmount Avenue, and I have to watch that every day, and it's really dangerous. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come forward?
Yes, I would. Dan Miller, 465 Green Village Road. The first issue I want to address is going to be what I've spoken about before with the zoning and how, it's wrong to want to look at limiting people. You know as well as I do that zoning, when you're looking at that, you're looking at height, you're looking at side setbacks, front setbacks, and rear setbacks. That's pretty much what you're going to look at, and impervious coverage. That about covers it all. Okay, we know full well that you're not going to increase any of those things, so the only thing you can be looking at is decreasing those things. When I look at specifically at Green Village, if you go to Zillow, average selling price for a home in Chatham Township is somewhere right about $900,000. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, you go to the Green Village section, because of how we've been limited by zoning and by denial of services like sewer service, okay? The average selling price of a home is somewhere around $500,000, okay? And you want to further take money away from our families by limiting them on what they can do on 60 by 100 lots. That's wrong. It's simply wrong. Now, the other issue I want to talk about is transparency, okay? And there's a couple of things to that, and engagement of the public. If you look out over here, there's very few people here. Very, very few. But yet each one of you, when you get 3 minutes per question during your debate time, every one of you talk about transparency and public engagement and what can we do to engage the public. I can tell you this, when you only choose to answer easy questions and ignore the hard ones, when you tell a person who's standing at the microphone, 30 seconds, sir, okay? That's not being engaging of the public. That's not inviting the public to come and air their issues. Usually as elected officials, you are fielding the tough questions. You're fielding the questions you don't want to answer. You're fielding the questions that you may not have the answer to. You're fielding the questions that you need to do further engagement and then engage the public on them. Usually when one person stands forward here and brings something up, it's usually something that's affecting an entire community or the town on a whole. So you don't need 100 people to, there we go, 1 minute. Thanks. You know, I mean, I sat here and listened to all of you guys bloviate on things for God knows how long you were talking, well over 3 minutes. I think the people who you serve should be afforded the same, okay? And I certainly was not the last time I was here. And transparency, it's like this committee has the transparency of darkened windows on a car, okay? And that's a shame. It shouldn't be that way. The public should be invited, not listened to, dismissed. Here's your 3 minutes, sit down. We didn't like your question, we're not going to answer it. You know, you want to talk about transparency, I see an item on here, Technology Advisory Committee. I see that on here. I first saw it in the book back here, and you guys want to avoid sunshine laws. You want to have a committee that doesn't even obey the law. I mean, that's horrendous in my opinion, and I think you should look at that. And beyond that, I hope that you, in the future, choose to engage the public by inviting them here to bring their issues forward and actually listening to what they have to say rather than dismissing them because you don't like the answer that you're going to have to give. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyone else would like to come forward? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sejal Shah. I live on Treetop Lane in Chatham Township. This is more of a question for the committee. Last year, I had the chance to meet with former Mayor Ritter, and we, presented a proposal for a township commuter service for the train station. And I know that you followed up with a survey, so I'm just wondering if that made any progress or what the readout was of that survey.
We do have the results of that. Still analyzing those with trans options and hope to have something hopefully within the next month or two.
Okay. So that will be communicated out?
That'll be communicated. We're hoping to maybe get trans options to come in here and help deliver the findings so they can articulate probably in clearer voice than myself.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else would like to come forward?
Hi, my name is Madeline Boland. I live on 369 Fairmount Avenue, and I just wanted to acknowledge the importance of the sidewalk or the proposed sidewalk for Fairmount Avenue and how it affects school-age kids like me. I think it would be really important to have and to get it done in a timely manner because there's a lot of school-age children who live on that stretch, and we could really benefit from that sidewalk because we could be able to walk to school safely instead of. I know a lot of friends like Charlie, who have to walk on the side of the road, and it's just not safe enough. My mom, she doesn't even let me walk because it's not safe enough for me to walk without a sidewalk there. She has to pay for a bus for me to go to school, and she has to drive me in the morning. And I think it would definitely help out citizens a lot, and it would also be great for recreational use, for recreational walking of pets, and to go to the Red Brick Schoolhouse as well. So, thank you.
Madeline, you're a freshman in high school, and I congratulate you. And for coming up here and talking to your lawmakers and body of the government here, and it's really impressive. I thank you very
Mr.
much.
Mayor.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to come forward?
My name is Krista Garubo. I'm Madeline's mom. I live at 369 Fairmount Avenue. Having a sidewalk would change a lot of our community. Living on Fairmount Ave, being a county road, in the last 3 years, I feel like the light timings have changed at that intersection. The traffic used to back up to maybe the third, fourth house. It goes 12 houses. I cannot pull out of my driveway in the morning at least 3 to 4 lights. Nobody will be kind or courteous to allow me to pull out. It incenses me. The bus comes down to pick my other daughter up. Bus stops. Stop sign comes out. Guardrail comes out. I have to tell my children to stand 10 feet back from the street that's in our driveway. Once that stops and that comes out, Lily and the neighbor, Dean next door, they know once that stopped, they have to look both ways. The other morning, some lady wasn't paying attention. I don't know what she was doing. Everything was out. Dean started, Lily grabbed him. She wasn't paying attention. She almost hit them. That's happened about 4 to 5 times since school started. So saying that that section isn't dangerous is an understatement. It is for the people that live there. She was mentioning the young man whose dad walks him. I don't even know how they cross the street to walk, because it's just not safe. I'd be really happy. I think a lot of people would, for the kids to have that. It's unfortunate that I have to pay extra to bus my child, but that's the reality that we have right now. That's extra money out of my pocket that I don't really have, but that's what we do. And other than that, I'm super proud of her for being able to get up and to talk to you all, to let you know what things really do matter to kids, and, you know, they can make a difference, and I'm hoping that, you know, whatever we can do to help with the difference in the grant money that was done, if there's a way we can help to raise money or to work on the committee so that we have, even if you guys can put another crosswalk someplace with lights like the train station has, anything that would allow the kids to have a safer cross, even when we're walking the dogs. Just people aren't very courteous. So thank you.
Thank you.
A quick question for you. Do you know when the bus picks up your children, do they typically pull over the other lane of traffic so cars can't bypass them, or no?
In the morning this year, they pull over to the other side. So we're on the museum side. So they pull over. Well, no, he kind of pulls. He doesn't really pull over to the side. He's in the lane. So I've even seen people try to go around.
Yeah, that's my point. Sometimes you see buses actually will
When it
pull over
stops
in the
at
middle of the lane
Longwood,
so people can't bypass it.
yeah, on Longwood, they do that and people pass in the ongoing lane all the time. So the bus thing has been a problem that some of the neighbors and I have been meaning to go to the police to talk about,
I
because
say, yeah, go to the police or go to the Board of Ed meeting.
because people blow through that light all the time. They're
Yep.
trying to make it, and they just gun it, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, something's gonna happen.
Yeah, it will, and it has. Even if you guys can paint like stop lines for when people want to turn, like going down towards, you know, from Southern to take the left onto Fairmount. It's so dangerous because people don't know where to stop. You get people that stop in the middle and then you can't make the left, or those people can't make the other left. It's a mess. So it would really be helpful if maybe there were guide markers on the ground for people. That might also be something that could be helpful. So that's it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come forward? Okay, then I'm moving on to the public hearing and final adoption of ordinances. We have 2 ordinances in our agenda to be adopted and final adoptions. And number 1 is ordinance 2019-05 colony pool fees, an ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, establishing pool membership fees for Colony Recreation Center commencing 2019. And I'm opening the floor to the public for this particular ordinance, and your comments should be specific to this particular ordinance. Thank you.
Dan Miller, 465 Green Village Road. 2 things I did not see on the fee schedule were fees for the disabled or fees for first responders. Is there something going on with that?
Yeah,
Would you like
thank you,
to
Bob.
address, Bob?
Well, just as a point of order, the first responders are in Section B.
Okay.
And they are entitled to a 50% reduction in whatever the cost is for the fees for the appropriate pool level. So if it's for families or individuals, it's a 50% reduction, but that's in Section B of the ordinance.
Okay, it's kind of hidden back in there so that
Well, it's
people
not on
don't
the
know.
table.
Right.
It's actually the paragraph right below.
Right. I was hoping that it would be on the table so people could just easily see it. And also the disabled, I did not see anything there.
Okay, thank
Bob,
you.
did you want to just talk about the new apparatus that we're getting?
Certainly. To answer the question, there's nothing specifically in the ordinance about a discount for anybody with a disability, but the township will be acquiring a device to help anybody that's handicapped enter the colony pool and exit the colony pool. So it's, you know, we're making continued improvements to make sure that the pool as well as the property are accessible.
Great.
I just think that, you know, due to the difficulties that the disabled have to begin with and the disadvantage that they're at, they probably shouldn't be charged a dime. Thank you.
All right, okay. Anyone else would like to come forward for this particular ordinance? Okay, if none, then I will close the floor for the public comments now. And I'm asking if I have a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Before we do that, can I ask a question? Once we adopt this, is it possible for us all to entertain the subject that Mr. Miller brings up and create a special, so this isn't going to be the final written in stone? We could add a codicil at some point. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Anybody second?
Second?
Okay. And the committee discussion, any comments? All right, so roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
And Mayor Selin.
Yes. Thank you, Greg, and ordinance adopted.
Yes, the ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. And the next item is the ordinance 2019-06, open space tax reduction. I'm going to read you quickly. Ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, accepting deed of, no, that's not the right one. All right. An ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending the provisions for the funding of open space acquisition. So, opening to the public.
Dan Miller, 465 Green Village Road. Should be kept at the 2 cents. With all the maintenance issues on the open space, with all the lack of connecting of the open spaces in town, you should leave it at the 2 cents so that those projects can be made. I've been listening for 40 years about connecting up all the green spaces that we've purchased, that we've spent plenty of big bucks on, and the county has spent plenty of big bucks on, and grants from the state and everything else. You know, it's about time, after 40 years, I think, to connect some of those properties and to maintain them properly. Typhoon, you and I went over a couple of properties in Green Village that were purchased by the town and are just growing up to waste, and eventually, you know, are just, they're useless. And that's not what the township was sold, the bill of goods they were sold when those properties were purchased. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else would like to make comments? All right, closing the floor to the public, and do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved. Second.
Great.
Well, actually, there's
committee-
discussion on this first.
Yeah, right now we have the time to discuss.
Okay.
So, any committee discussion?
I'm actually proposing much what Mr. Miller had said and what I said at the last meeting, that given the current economy, given the fact that we do have a AAA rating, given the fact that this is fiscal prudence in terms of offering us to raise additional funds to pay down debt, to not do anything and leave it at 2 cents.
Any other comments from the committee?
And I know in speaking with the Open Space Committee chairperson, he also indicated an interest in seeing the tax be higher than the 1 cent that's being proposed. And I believe at the Environmental Commission work site this past week, and he talked to a number of you on the committee and discussed it as well, which was a bit of a surprise to me because I thought at the last committee meeting, the comments from Mr. Kelly were that the Open Space Committee had been talked to and already gave a recommendation, which did not seem to be the case.
Any other comments?
If I may, Mayor?
Sure.
I think to reply to the opinion of the chairman of the Open Space Committee, I think there's you need to recognize that there's personal opinions, there's recognition of the larger realities, and they're not necessarily the same things. But with regard to the 2% versus 1%, I think as a practical matter, I think this is a very legitimate conversation to have looking forward to next year. I think that this open space tax is part of the budget that we've introduced and that is scheduled for final adoption at our next meeting. And I think if we go and we change tax rates at this point, it's going to require all kinds of re-advertising and delayed approvals on that. I don't know am I correct about that, Bob? Would that have impact on that?
Yeah, if I may, just as a point of clarification, it's 2 cents, not 2%, so I just want
Excuse
to make sure that we're precise on that. And the answer to the follow-up question was, yes, if the Township Committee wishes to take no action and have the open space tax revert to 2 cents, what we would do is we would amend the budget. There would be an advertisement for the amendment of that, and then the budget would wind up being adopted at the first meeting in May, not the meeting at the end of April.
So it could be done.
It could be, yes.
And do we have any idea, Kurt, with your proposal, what the impact to taxes would be if we went from 1 cent to 2 cent?
An additional cent.
It would be there would be an additional approximately $322,000 that would be raised, and that would be used to pay down the open space tax.
I meant to our tax rate.
Yeah, I can look it up in the office. I don't want to misspeak to the Township Committee, but it would,
I think if you take 800,000 as the average assessed value,
yep.
that's 8,000. It's I think it would be $80 a 1 cent tax increase. Does that sound right?
It sounds right, because 4,000 households, like for $80 for $8.
No, don't take
$300.
my word on
Yeah,
that.
the
Right, maybe
ratio is different. That's why I didn't want to
Okay.
speak for the Township
All right.
Committee. What it would be is right now we have a slight reduction in the municipal taxes. I believe it's a $24 reduction. We would wind up doing a calculation. It would wind up being a slight increase. But it would,
I believe that what we raise with the 1 cent tax is something in the neighborhood of $140-something thousand per year.
300.
no, it's
322.
But if we went to 2 cents,
it would be an additional 322,000 or 644,000.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be the total income if we went to 2 cents.
Correct. A 2 cent open space, reverting back to the 2 cent open space tax for 2019 would generate $644,000, which we would use to pay down open space, the acquisition of open space land.
And this comes out of our taxpayers' pockets.
It does.
Yes.
And we would wind up paying off it would take another 5 years to pay off what we have, and this would shorten it to probably 3 years.
All right.
Greatly reduce it.
Yes. Yes.
I am against raising taxes at this point. I know open space tax, it may make sense to pay down the debt in the future, but at this point, I'm against raising taxes. Roll call, please.
But is discussion over? You can't.
Do you have anything else to say?
Yes,
you
I
had-
do.
Okay, please.
My goodness.
Please.
I mean,
Because you had your
talk about transparency and open dialogue in this
transparency.
committee.
You please
Thank you.
tell
I
what
will
you would
reiterate.
like to say.
Reiterate my support for having this tax be 2 cents.
Okay.
I think Bob, as our administrator, has made a point, the AAA rating is important for our township, and it speaks volumes to the fiscal prudence of our committee and what we've done for taxpayers. We are fortunate enough to be in a situation where if we were to let this tax go to the 2 cent, which is in the ordinance to begin with, offers us an opportunity to pay down debt that much sooner, build additional funds for future open space purchases, and it sends a signal not only to the rating agencies, but it sends a signal to those of us or those organizations that we've always relied on, the county and the state as well, to solicit funds to support open space purchases, that we're serious about this. And I think it's an important step. And it's not something we have to do every year, but I think this is a year where it's prudent to do it. And I would strongly encourage my fellow committee members who speak of fiscal prudence and speak of support of open space to agree to let this go to 2 cents.
Okay.
I just have a question. Bob, how long was the open space tax? We were actively purchasing open space and actively incurring debt. How long was it at a half a penny? That's significantly lower than the 2 cents.
You know, I
think it was 5 years.
I don't want to misspeak. I think it's been at 1 cent for 3 years, but I'm not sure what it was before. And again, I will look at it and I'll send an email to the Township Committee tomorrow. It's just I have the notes in my budget file in the office, but
I think from the last meeting, it went up to 1 cent last year.
No.
And then
No,
it's
no.
it was still at a half penny last year?
It was not, it did not get, we did not come in going from a half a cent to a cent since I've been on this committee.
perhaps. Rick, do you remember?
I don't recall how often it's been lowered to half a cent, but I believe it was 2009 that the Township Committee started lowering it from the 2 cents to different increments, be it a cent and a half, a cent, half a cent. It was over the past 10 years that it's been reduced.
I believe it was 1 cent last year.
It was definitely 1 cent.
It was definitely 1 cent
and the
last
before.
year, and I think.
But in the 3 years that I've sat on this
And the year
committee,
before as well, I believe.
I have not voted for a tax increase ever.
18 and 17 was 1 cent.
And then for several years, it was also at
Half a cent.
a half a cent.
Yeah, and I believe that was it's 16. It was half a cent. I think it was 17 and 18. It was at 1 cent. But you know, I will send an email to the Township Committee
Okay.
tomorrow about that.
Thank you, Bob. All right, so anything else from the committee members?
I just reiterate that I think 1 cent is a good compromise at this point between the range that we have at our discretion. I think that we are in line for a $400,000 plus Green Acres grant, which is more than the amount that the extra cent would raise. So I think that we can put that toward paying down the debt. So I think that we can accomplish some of the goals that we're talking about here. And I think it would be very worthwhile to talk about 2 cents going forward, because I think I think it's a legitimate conversation to have. I just think that at this point, with the budget where it is and the impact that it would have on delaying it, that I would support going forward this year with the 1 cent.
Great, thank you.
How much would this delay the budget? I mean, I don't know if that's really an argument, if it's going to delay the budget by 2 weeks versus a week.
It would be one meeting.
Okay.
2
Yes,
weeks.
So 1 meeting, 2 weeks. Yes, that's correct.
That's if it goes down to the state and gets reapproved, or would that have to happen?
No, there would be an amendment that would be done to the budget. We would re-advertise the amendment to the budget. That has to be for 10 days.
Yeah, the
So it would be,
meeting is on the 25th, and then the next Thursday would be the publication in the Chatham Courier on the 2nd, which would be 7 days before the next meeting. We could also publish in the Morris County Daily Record to get it advertised a little bit sooner.
okay. So you would be able to adopt the budget at the first meeting in May.
All right, so
Well,
now,
I'd
again,
like to ask if the committee would not entertain 2 cents, if they'd entertain 1.5 cents.
thank you for good negotiations. Yeah.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Just to bring some clarification, the ordinance as written, the tax is already at 2 cents. This ordinance is lowering it to 1 cent, and there is the provision in here that it'll automatically go back to 2 cents in 2020 unless the committee takes further action again
Okay.
next year.
Excellent. Okay, so then at this point, our discussion
Would anyone,
is completing that discussion, repetitious at this point. I know you said 2 cents, go back to 2 cents. We don't have to take any action. It will go back to 2 cents if you do nothing.
well, that's
At
the
this
case
point,
it is
I guess-
every year.
Let me
So I
finish,
would-
let me
I would-
finish, let me finish. And at this point, committee, at the last meeting, decided to move forward, and we have discussion here, and I'm totally against raising taxes this year on our residents. And the fiscal prudence doesn't mean that raise taxes, pay debt. Fiscal prudence means find loopholes and pay the tax, pay the debt, not raising taxes. So that's not prudence to me. And yes, we may have to raise this to 2 cents next year, but at this point, and I think 1 cent, lowering to 1 cent is the way the ordinance is written, and when I ask for roll call.
Well, with that logic, I would say, why don't you go to half a cent?
We completely discussed this.
Well, the purpose of
comprehensively
this
last
meeting is to
meeting.
discuss
Last
things
meeting,
in public, Typhoon. I don't know why you were
Kurt-
always trying to rush this meeting.
Kurt, I'm not rushing this meeting, I'm just following the process. We have an ordinance on the agenda. It was introduced a couple weeks ago, actually 4 weeks ago. Now we're adopting this ordinance, and we had committee discussion. And I understand your position to higher it to 2 cents, lower it to half cents, lower it to 1.5 cents, anything but lowering it to 1 cent. So that is, to me, we're repeating ourselves here. So yes, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
No.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
And Mayor Slin?
Yes,
Motion passes and ordinance is adopted.
thank you. Okay, so we have another item. Next item is the introduction of ordinance, ordinance 2019-0-07, accepting deed of conservation easement for Block 61, Lot 16. So I'm just going to read this quickly. Bear with me. The ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, accepting deed of conservation easement from Golden River Homes LLC for a conservation easement on and over Lot 16 in Block 61 as shown on the Township of Chatham tax map and commonly known as 11 Sunset Drive. And is it John maybe can, or maybe, okay, you will
I'll
give us
address
some
that, Mr.
feedback,
Mayor.
please. Thank you.
Periodically, ordinances of this type come before you. In this particular case, the Board of Adjustment granted a variance. A condition of that variance was that the property owner grant the conservation easement to the municipality. The form of conservation easement was reviewed by myself and the engineer, and it is acceptable, along with the description of the property to be conserved. And essentially, this is a restriction on that limited area of the property to remain in its natural condition. And it is to fulfill a condition of the Board of Adjustment approval.
Can we get a description of the property? I drove by it and it just looks like woods to me.
The ordinance, and I'm not, let me check your version of it, but the ordinance that I have to be signed includes a meets and bounds description of, I believe, 4 courses that was reviewed by Mr. Rushke. And perhaps John could tell me where it's in the front, back, rear side of the property.
The lot is vacant, it is wooded, and so it did, the variance was steep slopes, and what the board did as a condition of approval, preserved a portion of the steep slopes that are not going to be disturbed. And it's not a very large area, it's a normal lot within the R3 zone, so it was not a very large area that's being conserved. I don't recall the exact dimensions, but it was generally the width of the lot, maybe 20 to 30 feet wide.
It's a total of 2,471 feet.
And it's to preserve a steep slope area?
Correct.
What were the waivers that were granted, the variances that were granted by the Board of Adjustment? Does the variance specifically apply to the buildable area minus the conservation easement? Or is it a variance based on lot usage with the house that is planning on going in there?
The variance was based on the proposed limit of disturbance, which excluded this conservation area. So the approved limit of disturbance was for the house, the driveway, stormwater improvements, general grading. It was for the lot grading plan.
So in other words, they're actually using a greater portion in order to build the house because they've given away this portion to conservation easement? So if you minus the lot size from the conservation easement, they're actually using more of the house, more of the usable lot that they would under the regular formula?
No, the board deliberated and they came with a practical and reasonable limits for the proposed house, being there was actually some reduction in the house and there was quite a few deliberations with the board. And basically there was concerns from neighbors that are located down gradient of this lot, and that was kind of some of the developers' proposed means of mitigating the variance is to preserve some of the steep slopes and alleviate those concerns of the residents that are located downstream.
These people, Golden River Homes, are the ones who have acquiesced. I see that it says that the house has been sold, or just the lot has been sold, or Golden River is the homeowner, or they're building it on behalf of the homeowner? Is it?
I don't, I believe it's that they are, I'm not sure if they're contract purchaser.
Golden River Homes owns the property.
They do.
They have fee title to it. I've seen the deed, I've seen the title policy, and I wanted to see both of them, so I knew that the person with ownership interest in the property could in fact conserve the property. So it is currently owned by Golden River
I got
Homes
it.
LLC.
Okay, I'm asking only because it sounds like there was an acquiescence on the part of Golden River Homes to grant this conservation easement so that the grounds would be undisturbed in perpetuity, which kind of brings to bear a comment we were talking about property owners' rights not long ago, and the mayor here referred to unscrupulous builders being all over town and said, look around Chatham Township, there are unscrupulous builders everywhere. And I took great exception to that. I thought there are not unscrupulous builders everywhere. There are a lot of very good, responsible, neighborhood-conscious builders everywhere, all over town. We ran into a bad actor with the one particular neighborhood. But I look at Golden River Homes, I look at the homes that they have built, I look at the things that they've done around town. They build beautiful homes. And I look here and see that they have acquiesced whatever it is, 247 feet, just for the fact that they want to create this conservation easement, to do the right thing by the neighbors, to do the right thing by the environment, to do the right thing from people who are perhaps downstream from where this lot is. And this is what the market has taken care of in and of itself. So for any other onerous government body to be standing over them, making sure they do the right thing because we have the impression that there are unscrupulous builders all over town, I would say this is a case in point that says there are not unscrupulous builders all over town. So I think this is very common.
They did it to get a variance, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
And the variance was,
for a steep slope disturbance, correct.
right.
It's not uncommon this is a very common recommendation of the Environmental Commission. They usually go through all the reports and it was discussed and then they offered to comply with the recommendation of the Environmental Commission.
Right, and it shows a willingness on the part of the builder to play ball within the best intentions of the township.
Any other? Okay, do I have a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Anybody second that?
Second?
Committee discussion, which I think we have done some of it. Do we have any other comments? Any discussion? Okay. All right, so roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes, we're moving to introduce.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Ursuline?
Yes.
Motion passes, and public hearing will be on April 25th.
Great, thank you, Greg. Now, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. What it means is the routine items that may be passed by a single roll call vote, and any committee member may call for a separate discussion or vote on any item. Greg, would you please?
Yes, this evening's items are Resolution 2019-95, payment of bills, 2019-96, approving meeting minutes, 2019-97, approving executive session minutes, 2019-98 outside lien redemption, 2019-99 refunding overpayment of taxes, 2019-100 designating bond anticipation note, 2019-101 appointing plumbing official, 2019-102 authorizing administrator to interview and select township doctor and alternate doctor for physicals and fit for duty exams, 2019-103 renewing contract with City Connections, and 2019-104 authorizing administrator and clerk to sign application for development.
Okay, great, thank you, Greg. Okay, do I have a motion?
I do have a question about 2019-102, if we can just either remove it for discussion or have discussion on it now. I'm not.
102?
Yeah.
The administrator? Okay.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer questions if you'd like.
I do have some questions, Bob. Approximately how many of these visits have we had historically, doctor's visits?
You know, I'm not sure how many we've had historically, but the purpose of this is we've had about three this year, and we have what I had wanted to do was to make sure we were able to select a township doctor so that our employees who have hurt themselves or injured themselves, not on the job, we can make sure that they can come back for work,
Right.
not get hurt. So that's what this is, and it's basically to work with doctors for the JIF, but the joint insurance fund does not pay for these medical visits. So
Does it get paid for out of the township, or does the
it gets paid.
employee use the doctor within their own network?
This gets paid for by the township, but what I would like to do is be able to select doctors that are in our network.
Right.
So that,
In our Chatham Township Employee Medical Plans
that is correct.
network?
That is correct.
Right.
And I want to make sure that the doctors also work with our joint insurance fund, so that there can be a seamless transition if necessary. But right now we have this gap, so
Right.
if we need to, and hopefully we won't need it that often,
No.
but if we do need it, I would like to be able to have doctors that are there and available for our employees to go to, so that we can make sure that they're healthy and are able to return to work.
But you think right now, we've had 3 so far, figure we're in the first quarter, so
Yes.
we don't have any real historic, maybe it stands to reason we'd have a dozen just in the course of the year?
I don't know if we would have a dozen in the course of the year. Maybe I would hope that we don't have a
Right,
dozen.
exactly.
But, we've probably, just reading the correspondence from last year, there were probably 4 or 5,
Okay.
so.
And do we have a criteria that we'll be using to select these doctors that, other than they're in the network? Because you're looking at maybe 1 or 2 doctors?
Well, yes, we're going to have a criteria. The criteria will be similar to what the JIF uses when they interview doctors and select them for their use. And we want to select a doctor that would be comfortable working with the township. This is something that's serious. This would not be something that it's come in, cough, thank you very much, and leave. This would be whatever the particular injury might have been or illness. Can our employees safely perform the duties that they're supposed to do, or do they need to stay?
Right.
They need to stay out of work. So that's what we want to do.
Are these employees typically on claim that have to have their medical condition, or they're just taking sick days, or?
They've been taking. It's a combination. They've been taking sick time. It could be anything from, a knee injury over the weekend to something that's more serious. But I've had experience with this in the past in other places where something happens over a weekend, and then if you don't take the appropriate steps, it becomes a workers' comp claim because our employees get hurt on the job, because they were favoring, they were trying to protect themselves
Sure.
from injury.
No, I'm just curious about how we would go through, you can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting 3 dozen doctors, so I'm just wondering how we would end up vetting doctors for Chatham, like getting a team doctor for the Chatham Township employment staff.
Maybe we'll call the Jets and ask them.
Call the Jets and ask them. And, you know, I would imagine that we would have, in the event of an objection to a certain physician, whether a female employee wanted to deal only with a female physician or something like that, we would have the latitude to make that decision on an ad hoc basis?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And okay, so now, do I have a motion to, now we're going to get to the discussions. We just got ahead of ourselves now. And do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Anybody second?
Second.
Okay. Now discussion and anything else other than what Karen mentioned?
Yeah, if Bob or Albert could just give us a little explanation of item number 10, which was just added to the agenda kind of at the last minute.
10?
Yeah, there's another copy of the agenda they put here. Right.
This is the copy
That's the pen over there.
of the application for development.
That is related to the affordable housing development at the skate park. As you know, there have been a series of applications that have been submitted. One was to the planning board, which I understand will be heard by the planning board at their May meeting. There are other outside agency approvals that will be required. For example, this particular resolution is triggered by a freshwater wetlands permit application, which is a standard application when you're dealing with property that has wetlands on it. The application was reviewed by the township engineer and myself, and it is acceptable and consistent with the development that is proposed there. This resolution, instead of having to come to the township committee each and every time there are additional permits that are required for this property, because the developer may need that application signed off a lot sooner than your meeting schedule is. This resolution grants the mayor, the administrator, and the clerk the authority to sign those applications, provided that Mr. Rushke and I believe it is appropriate to so sign.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Okay. Then there's nothing else. We can go to the roll call vote.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
And Mayor Selene.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now, next item is that this, we have several items for discussion and possible ordinance or resolutions. So number one is the lot grading fees. I think, John, you would give us some feedback on this?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
You know, what I have prepared, some proposed changes to the lot grading plan. It's not just fees, but, you know, some technical items also. I'll just go through them quickly on some of the highlights, not all the details, certainly if the committee has any questions. But for example, I want to correct some of the things that truly aren't being administered through the ordinance. And for example, right now, the lot grading is required if you place more than 20 cubic yards of fill. It's just not practical. We have never implemented that. You know, we rely on the 1,000 square feet of disturbance. It's just something that's just cleaning the ordinance up, because for over 10 years, I've never seen, you know, a lot grading plan coming in because someone's putting in, you know, 30 cubic yards of soil. I think the threshold of 1,000, you know, meets the intent of what we're trying to accomplish with the ordinance of regulating the land activity. So it's just something that's not practical. Another item I've added in is always confusion on some of the developers regarding the demolition of a structure. A lot of times Greg and Pink will issue a demolition permit, but they still need a lot grading plan if they disturb more than 1,000 square feet as part of that lot grading, as part of that demolition project. And I've had developers question that, so I just want to make it very clear in the ordinance that if you're demoing a structure and you're going to disturb more than 1,000 square feet of land disturbance, you need a lot grading before you implement that demolition.
What percentage of demolitions have we seen that are less than 1,000 square feet?
Frankly, I think most developers are exceeding that threshold.
Right.
It's
I mean, all you have to
usually-
do is bring a
yeah.
backhoe on and you're automatically
You
disturbing
start,
even more,
usually
not
it's
just
an
the footprint of
excavator
the
and they're
house.
turning the excavator and they're disturbing the soils and so for the most part, I think they probably exceed it more than they limit it.
My question.
So that's why I want to start making sure that we've had, circumstances where the disturbance was quite substantial without a plan in place. So we just want to make sure that practice is clear in the ordinance, and so the developer knows that they have to get a permit if they can certainly minimize the disturbance if they access the site through the existing driveway and they access it through that, but in most cases, they're disturbing more around the soils, and we need to regulate that.
And how many of the demolitions that we're talking about would you say, under this new one, should therefore be held to filing a lot grading plan?
It would be a guesstimate, but it would probably be, what's occurring now would probably be half of,
Okay.
in that range.
Right.
But what I would hope is that it's not to make sure if someone wants to demo the structure without a lot grading plan, they comply
Right.
with this requirement. Do
Of
not
course.
disturb the entire site. If you want to disturb the structure, limit the disturbance beyond the structure to less than 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Another item that I've included is we regulate stormwater on the property as a finished product. We look at the project being done with dry wells installed, with the site is completely vegetated, and that's what we make sure that they meet the stormwater requirements, and there are reductions from when the project is complete. However, an inherent issue that's really throughout New Jersey is that these lot grading plans, soil erosion sediment control plans, they don't regulate the increases in stormwater that frankly do occur during construction, because during construction the soils is bare. You're not getting the runoff coefficients that you would with grass. It's bare soil, so you start to get increases. And
You don't have gutters on the
and
house.
you don't have gutters on houses, and that's a lot of the complaints that I've responded to. I go out and I just tell the contractor, put the gutter on and connect it to the dry well. You have that entire impervious coverage of the house, draining onto the site. And so one of the requirements is that, and it's not, in my opinion, not a burden, because the developers or the homeowner, anyone has to, if they have to install a dry well, install it right away when you're excavating the foundation versus doing it after the fact. And so the ordinance basically requires the dry wells to go in and certified, because I have had situations where the house is complete and then they come to me at the end and they have an issue that the dry well is not meeting the ordinance, and they have to then have delays of modifying, doing whatever they have to do to meet the ordinance, or I have to send them to the board. So I'd rather that if there is an issue with the dry wells, identify it up front versus, at the end of the project.
That sounds like a hugely positive,
I think it will
hugely
be.
positive facet
And
to
basically, the ordinance is going to require that even if they're temporary gutters, go on as soon as the house is framed and the roof is constructed, put on temporary gutters or the permanent gutters, and spend the time to do the permanent gutters and just connect it. And so, because usually the gutters go on, almost at the end of the project versus in the beginning, and it really would be a very positive
Right.
impact if we have the gutters installed.
well, I think it would save a world of hurt to the neighbors who have to endure construction sites in their neighborhoods, on their streets. They're constantly asking to have their streets cleaned because of soil runoff and mud in the gutters and everything else. I think this is a very, very important thing.
Correct. So
Yeah.
it's positive.
John, on that particular question, on the bottom of page 2, letter N under number 4 is about that water runoff and not affecting downstream neighbors. But in reading it, I didn't see any reference to either post-construction or during construction. And the point you make is very important. Should that be changed and one of those terms be inserted in that item just to...
I'm sorry, section D?
Bottom of the second page, it was number 4N as in Nancy.
It has a notation next to it that says moved insertion 1.
Yeah, this is actually, that provision N is actually an existing, I was going to go into that discussion, but that's already a provision that we have, and it's listed under, it's required under the lot when you're disturbing steep slopes. And so some of the items that are listed under our steep slope section really is beneficial to have it for all developments versus just when it's applicable to steep slopes. So that provision was in the ordinance already. It was just under, if you have a disturbance of steep slopes, we had additional conditions they had to comply with. And so some of those conditions, like I said, was just general engineering principles or guidelines that just make sense to put it for all developments, and so that's what that was there. So with the comment regarding the dry wells, I'm basically saying the dry wells, if required, are installed with the building foundation, so it's installed right away, and then I do follow up that they have to get the certifications right away, and yes, and then the requirement for the dry wells, it's,
I think it's S.
yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Upon
Correct, S.
completion of the roof of the house, temporary gutters and downspouts should be immediately installed and connected to the dry wells.
Correct, thank you. That was, again, and that was, yes, that's where we have that provision. So just continuing and just adding some additional details regarding, for example, just making it clear, streams, wetlands buffers, riparian zones. Riparian buffers are more of a current terminology than when past ordinance was done. Again, just quickly going through it, some of the conditions I have pulled from the section that were in the steep slopes, and I'm just putting it as general conditions. I'm just jumping right to the fees now. The fees, I did identify that I raised the fees because the fees were not appropriate for it. I raised it to $1,000 for lot grading that involved a newer, substantially improved principal structure, basically the tear down rebuilds, because there is a lot of time that goes in the first review regarding stormwater. It does sometimes require a second review, but the fees, there's just a lot intense that goes in. I'm also reviewing it from a zoning perspective. I'm reviewing it from the tree ordinance, and there's just a lot of time that goes into it.
Are these fees paid to the township, or is that?
The township. The township.
And how does that compare to other municipalities?
Well, other municipalities, the other towns, I would say that some towns have for lot grading, they have actually escrow established, and they'll do an escrow deposit. I know for one town I'm in, Pacon, it's a $2,500 escrow deposit that they put in. It just covers the escrow, and then it covers the entire project, and at the end of the project, whatever's less than the escrow is returned.
How do we sell on
I would have to do research to see.
How do we settle on $1,000 versus $500 or $750 or?
Well, the fees is just knowing the amount of time that I'm spending on them. That's really what I'm looking at from that perspective. And the fees also, I've always had the practice of when I'm billing my time responding to complaints, because I get a lot of complaints. Is that building too high? Are they in compliance and things? And I do charge that to the general lot grading, because that's part of the service of implementing this program. And so we have looked at, I have also had Greg look at what the fees that we're collecting, because it should pay for itself. And that's the other perspective, is to make sure that the fees that we're collecting is in fact reimbursing the program. So the $1,000 I think is a reasonable fee that we see is to cover that review. And then I reduced it. Then we have a $400 fee for just, and that was the previous fee that was all structures we had for major construction, for tear down rebuilds, and for any other landscaping, other projects. All was $400, but the $400 is still present for those smaller projects for the residents if they're doing patios, pools, and things of that nature. So it's really just picking up the more intense costs that we have when we're reviewing those major projects.
I noted that in number 5, we talk about additional inspections, and that just because it's a little tough to follow, can you explain where, it looks like we've deleted up to 2 inspections for the property, one of which must be the final inspection. If a property requires multiple inspections, we want to make sure that we're covering our costs on that.
Correct, because we, you know, unfortunately, what most people do is they call for final inspections, and the site is not even clear to, not even close to being final, and then I spend all this time doing punch lists and identifying all the deficiencies, and so they kind of like a screening of what, are they close or not? And so and we do have issues where we do have multiple inspections of doing, they call us out, we have a punch list, they didn't complete all the punch lists, now we gotta go out again. So it just covers the multiple inspections that we do with the project.
And is there an escalation in that? So let's say you're given 3 inspections. And then if we have to, like you said, they're kind of like, gee, are we ready? And they expect you to do the punch list for them. And they expect you to do a second punch list for them. And then a third punch list for them because they're still not compliant. Is there an escalation in that fee structure if you have to keep continually going out there for?
Well, the fee is every time we go out, they get charged. That's basically the escalation, and we don't charge more for each inspection. They just they pay for the cost that the town has incurred for me to go out to inspect it again.
What is that fee?
Well, it's usually, the fee is based on the time that we spend. So if we go out again and do, it may be only an hour inspection, but and then we have to go back to the office, and if it's a real long inspection report that we have to write up, it may be an additional half hour or another hour. So it may be 2 hours that we charge them for the inspection fee. So it's really contingent, and sometimes it's just a half hour. We go out, it was a minor punch list, we go out, we check it, and it's a half hour that we charge because we have to go out and verify that they.
What's your hourly rate?
Mine is $145. But then I don't do all the inspections. I have staff that goes out that bills less than my rate.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions or committee discussions?
For rebuilds, where builders are, and homeowners are using the existing foundation of the property in order to save on taxes. Do we require as-built surveys to be provided to the township?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow the question.
So when we're having with the knockdowns and the rebuilds, sometimes there'll be a complete demolition with a brand new foundation being put in. Other times we'll have houses that are knocked down and you'll see the foundation existing and the chimney going up. So they'll use the existing foundation, not build a new foundation.
They're keeping the same footprint, I think.
Yeah, but
Right.
that's, there isn't, there's still the same fees regarding reviewing that application, regarding, the grading aspect, the stormwater management aspect. There's no additional, if they're going to use a foundation or not, that's just part of the construction.
That's just part of it. And at the end of that, do they have to provide the township with an as-built survey, or?
Well, if they're using the existing foundation, usually we have a survey in the beginning of the lot grading showing the dimensions to the existing foundation. So if we already have those dimensions, we don't ask for an as-built. But if we're going out and they're doing a new foundation, we do get a foundation location survey and they identify the location. We do have as-built requirements that they do. We do require an as-built regarding all the impervious coverage, and a lot of times, they do exceed their limits, and they have to remove a portion of the patio or do something to bring down the impervious. So that does happen with the as-built in the end.
And with respect to impervious coverage, I was looking at a new build on my way as I travel back and forth on Fairmount. And it's a rather large driveway. I don't know whether that's going to remain gravel or if that's in keeping with the impervious coverage for the lot.
Every lot, as part of the lot grading requirements, I review it from a zoning perspective. So I check the amount, I make sure the impervious coverage is correct, so a gravel driveway is considered impervious by our ordinance. I make sure the building coverage, I make sure the setback requirements, I make sure the retaining walls are correct. So any of the lot grading is reviewed from a zoning perspective.
Okay. Anything else,
Okay,
Tracy?
yeah, and again, I just wanted, this has not gone through a legal review, so.
Okay,
the
that's fine. So
language
this is work in
will be
progress.
changed and things, but again, just kind of hitting on the highlights. Another provision that I've added in is regarding engineering and legal fees that are incurred in response to a violation. And basically, it's saying if I have to respond to a violation, multiple write-ups or whatever the effort is to bring them back into compliance, they are basically the applicant is responsible to pay for the fees that the township professionals incur, and that gets passed on.
Does that go, John, does that go for extra equipment that you may have to utilize? I recall you talking once about having to use a special camera to inspect whether downspouts or drainage was actually compliant from an engineering perspective. Do you pass those costs along built into the lot grading? Is that part of the contract here?
Well, it's some of those things are very unique and
Yeah.
do not happen that often.
Right.
And I think in those cases, we would tell the contractor or developer well in advance that if you don't correct this is going to be our corrective action to make sure it's done correctly. So those type of things. If we go to that extent, I would pull in Mr. Cruz and we'll do things like that. But I would be more talking about doing multiple inspections, multiple write-ups, and things of that nature. If we have to do extraordinary efforts to get them into compliance, we want those costs to be.
Or, well, to determine whether there is actually, in fact, a violation.
Well, it's I think in this, the way it's written is if there's a violation, they'll incur those costs. Because I do get reports from residents complaining that someone had a violation, and I
Yes.
go there and they're not.
Right.
And so that's unfair for a developer, and I keep referring to developers, it could be a homeowner also. It's unfair for them to be billed for that, and that's just a normal course of implementing this program. I've always gotten those calls, not on every single lot grading, but I do get complaints of the, is that building the correct height, or is
Right.
that
Oh, sure.
setback, is it setback? And so those things are just answering the general public concerns and issues, and we are responsive to those, and that's just part of implementation of the program. So I think we need to be cognizant of what's fair of the fees that we charge if someone else is making a complaint and it's not valid. So,
And I also have a question following about drainage and sewer lines. When there is somebody doing substantial construction, whether it's a builder or a homeowner, we look at the drainage in the area, and we currently look at the drainage in the area to see if it's substantial enough to withstand, or if there are any drainage issues on the properties that need to be remedied.
we do not, for the most part, our municipal drainage system is undersized to meet today's standards.
Yes.
Substandard drainage systems. For the most part, a lot of the systems only handle a 5-year storm. It does not handle a 25-year storm. So we do not have, in some, and that's not, it's a general statement, but for the most part, a lot of our system is for smaller storm events. Our stormwater ordinance requires that there are peak reductions from the property. So people are always concerned, the redevelopment is creating more water. Actually, no. Redevelopment, they are installing dry wells and other measures to mitigate stormwater. So really the comment is that when a redevelopment occurs, the stormwater off the site is less than what it was previously. So that's why we don't analyze the municipal system, because we're already putting a benefit into our municipal system because we're showing a reduction on that property.
And the same with sewer lines too, because that's becoming a big concern.
The sewer lines, the ordinance does make note, it's already regulated, but I added in the ordinance just so it's very clear during a lot grading, is that if you do a lot grading, you're not exempt from our road opening requirements if they have to reinstall the sewer lateral, and you're not exempt from the tree ordinance. You have to comply with both, and it's just very clear that it is part of the permanent process. For the most part, the sanitary sewer systems, we don't see a drastic increase in wastewater flow that would warrant an increase in the pipes. For the most part, a lot of times, even though it's a larger house, more bedrooms, it's more modern fixtures, and so they're water conservation fixtures versus older fixtures, and so it really hasn't been a real issue regarding wastewater aspects. You know, if we do in fact have a major development like Dixie Dale, that's a different story. That's where we analyze everything. We analyze the system. We analyze the pump stations.
Brand new anyway.
Yeah,
That'll all be
yeah.
brand new.
Well, it's new, but then it discharges into our existing system. So
Right.
we need to make sure our existing system can accommodate that additional flow, not just in the pipes, but in the pump station itself. So, and then we also have to look at the treatment aspect. But we, for a typical tear down rebuild, it's not an issue usually for the capacity of the pipes. Because usually the minimum size pipe for a sanitary sewer is well oversized. A lot of times the problem is the flow is too low. It's not enough velocity in the pipe.
Have you heard things to the contrary on that? Or
I know it's just becoming a thing.
But
Yeah.
a thing meaning people are just saying it because John
No.
is providing evidence that it's actually not a thing?
No. In real estate, when so there's certain things that happen, like fireplaces are a big thing. It moves from topic to topic when you're building a house, or you have a builder building a house, or you have somebody coming in to do a knockdown, or you have somebody now even buying a house. They're doing sewer studies. They're scoping the sewers, the sewer lines coming from the homes, to making sure that they're in good repair, that there's no, what do you call them, fatbergs?
Yeah, that certainly is a different discussion regarding, you know, infiltration and issues that we have with our sewer system. But most developers, you know, the basement is going deeper. They usually look at the pipe. They're usually replacing the sewer lateral because they want to go deeper with the things.
Okay.
And so they usually look at the depth of the sewer to make sure that they can possibly go deeper or meet their requirements of what they want to do with the house. So that's something that does come up.
Thank you.
I guess my only question, then, what's the next step? You say it still needs legal review, John?
It still needs legal review, and you know, just starting a general discussion here. The committee does have the general comments that I've made. Certainly, some feedback, you know, tonight or just you know, afterwards, just as we finalize this into an ordinance form. Certainly, you know, provide any additional comments, and we can just get this to a point where it can come back to the committee for further consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you for all.
When you, when we've had these discussions about construction sites and development sites and builders and so on, in many cases, we have thrown down the statement that this is an enforcement issue as opposed to a building issue. And, you know, if there are a certain set of rules and regulations, including the updating to the lot grading plan, maybe increased scrutiny and calls for visits more often or whatever, I would think that this goes a long way to ensure the public that things are being done to make sure that the letter of the law, or therefore the intention of the law, is being followed, as opposed to going forth and adding increased restrictions for no reason. The fact that we're actually making sure that the law and the ordinance and the codes are clear, as opposed to worrying about whether the laws have to be changed, rather than just enforcing the ones we have.
Well, we are fundamentally reactive versus proactive when it comes to enforcement. That's the way we implement our program. We do not do, you know, unannounced and regular inspections. I basically do an inspection in the beginning and for reviewing the plan, and I do an inspection at the end. I do no interim inspections, and that you know, we have our construction department, Greg Impink, who's inspecting the foundation, inspecting the framing, he's going to the site on a regular basis, and
Right.
he's doing the enforcement as part of that. I usually get called from Greg if there's a problem. If he actually sees, if he speaks to the developer and the developer's not responsive, or something is just not right with the plan, or there's an issue, then Greg will pull me in at that point. Otherwise, it's just done through the normal courses of, and Greg just coordinates those inspections with his normal inspections under UCC. So, you know, the changes that we're doing with the ordinance is more of a better final product versus, you know, enforcement. And enforcement, we're not changing anything at this point in time.
Right,
Great.
as long as we enforce.
Correct. Correct.
Good job. And it's a work in progress, and
Still work in
we'll see.
progress.
Okay, we'll hear
Thank
more.
you, John.
And Kurt, I do apologize. I think I misquoted. It's 148 an hour, I think. So, sorry.
$3 extra.
3 extra bucks.
Thank
I
you.
apologize.
The tax included, or? I'm kidding. Okay. All right, next item is the Technology Advisory Committee, which I have mentioned to this committee several times in the past. And this is my initiative, and I would like to form a committee that will prepare a technology master plan for the township, and which plan and shall be reviewed and maintained regularly, plus evaluate the cybersecurity threats and how to defend the township from those threats. And as you know, we want to use more technology because technology makes our life easier and better. As we use more technology, it brings more risks. And how do we mitigate those risks? And that is part of the committee. This is an advisory committee. This is not like planning board. This is an totally advisory. They will advise the committee, and they will not be able to take any actions. They will just recommend township committee to take actions if need be. And they will create also, what I envision is that this committee will also create awareness and to the public, and what risks that not only the government has, also the people have, and there will be, again, in my vision, that there will be some communication regularly from this committee, advisory committee, to township committee. That communication committee can communicate those recommendations to the public. I'll give you an example, and you know, one of the other towns and in Bergen County is doing, like, you know, they have a monthly newsletter, which I'm not suggesting we should have monthly newsletters, but like staying safe from tax scams. January 28th is the National Data Privacy Day, and they have a cybersecurity awareness poster contest for kids. This is all driven by the township, and not by, you know, any private organization. So this is the plan, and you know, we will discuss this with the committee. I would like to hear your comments and to improve this if necessary and if need be, and move forward in the future, possibly with adopting an ordinance. All right, I'm
Yeah, I have a-
welcome to
Initial.
here, sure.
Trying to help them understand, what is the purpose of this committee?
I just said that.
To put out a newsletter?
No. Just purpose of this committee, as I said in the beginning, to prepare a technology master plan for the township, working with the township administrator and the township committee. That's number one. Number two, to evaluate the cybersecurity risks and threats out there. So, recommend the township committee to take steps accordingly. So that's exactly what I think would be the purpose. But if you think other things that we should include, welcome to
I'm just trying to get an
enriching.
understanding of what this committee would solve that perhaps City Connections or whoever we use for our, I forget who is our email server is, Hunter, you know, in other words, what our current existing vendors provide. I mean, if this committee is to help residents understand the threat of cyber threats or whatnot, that's one thing. But this is positioned as creating a technology master plan and helping the township protect against cybersecurity threats, which leads me to believe that we're completely unprotected at this point.
All
I don't
right,
know if
so
Bob has insights in terms of what our vendors currently provide in terms of security?
We have, there were steps that were taken at the end of last year to help improve our cybersecurity protection. So that was the first step. In discussions with our vendors, there are things that we need to do in the future. So we have, we are protected, but there's always a threat out there, as just reading about some of our sister communities, what they've been going through recently. One of the things that would be important from the township's perspective is, I do want to make sure that we have a technology master plan so that we are spending our money wisely and we have a good framework. But I'm involved in the day-to-day aspect of evaluating policies for the township and implementing the policies that we have and managing the municipality on a day-to-day basis. But it would be helpful if there were some people that were more on the technology forefront and that could advise us of what's out there in the future. What are some of the things that we need to be worried about? And we do need to work with our future IT consultants, our current and our future IT consultants. We need to do a better job using our technology. But I would look for assistance in what is the next generation of whatever that's out there? What should the township be looking at over the next few years, and where should we be trying to go with using technology as a tool, but also how do we protect the information that the township has? How do we protect? We collect information. How do we make sure we protect it? How do we make sure that we use it appropriately? So,
Have we consulted with our vendors at this point in terms of what their experience is with other municipalities in terms of developing technology master plans? In other words, so as not to reinvent the wheel. I mean, these folks have the relationship with the municipalities.
the answer is to a limited degree, but I have not consulted with our current vendor. They are our current vendor is more focused on the voice aspects of technology, and they have recommended that we talk to a couple of other vendors, and we're in the process of doing that. The police have done a good job with their IT consultant to make sure that they have a baseline for a technology master plan and they're being protected. So
I remember during our interview process, you had mentioned you had experience in this, I thought, right?
I do.
Is this something okay.
Yeah.
Now, that's the first time I had heard about this thing was when we talked to you, so.
Yeah. This is, I have helped prepare technology master plans for other communities, and it's, they are important. They're a good framework because this way you know where to spend money, where to allocate resources, because it's more than just money. It's other types of resources, and then you have to keep that technology master plan moving forward. So there are people that we can consult with, but it's also we have to be prepared for the whatever's going to come that we haven't thought about.
Well, thanks for bringing the idea to the table.
You're welcome.
Do we have any, to me, this is a two-pronged problem. And if you're going to sit around with 7 lay people discussing something as nebulous at its conception as a technology master plan, you're just going to have 7 citizens who want to sit around talking about this. The fact that there is no open public meetings restrictions to me is frightening, frankly. I think anytime we get a bunch of citizens together acting in the name of the township, the fact that there's no reporting to the Open Public Meetings Act is frightening. I would take that out of there right away, whether you're calling them an advisory committee or a board or whatever. So I think people need to, unless this is a law enforcement issue, unless it means that there are sensitive cybersecurity matters being discussed, and if it's a law enforcement issue, this belongs under the purview of public safety or some other area of our local government, as opposed to 7 lay people sitting around saying, I wonder how we're going to get hacked this time, or did you hear what happened to Wells Fargo? Because that's not how to create a successful firewall against the outside trying to come in and hack the township's police records or tax records or payroll or whatever have you. I know that law enforcement is moving forward on these matters on an hourly, daily, weekly basis. Nobody's more prepared to take it on, I don't think, than the next generation of law enforcement. Our sheriff is certainly 100% on board with it. I know Chief Miller has paid ample attention to it as well. So if it's a law enforcement issue, being out there trying to be one step ahead of cyber criminals and cybersecurity, this is not an ad hoc advisory committee role, especially one that should be dealing on I don't know, maybe a social media platform. Because if it's just sitting around figuring out who gets the Twitter password, I don't think we need 7 citizens figuring out how to do that on a monthly basis.
Greg, you want to say something? You were trying.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I will address the aspect of the Open Public Meetings Act. Under the Open Public Meetings Act, and as the mayor said, this is purely an advisory committee. It has no authority of it on its own other than to make a recommendation to the Township Committee working in conjunction with the Communications Committee and the Administrator. So under the Open Public Meetings Act, advisory committees do not have to hold their meetings in public. Secondly, because there is a cybersecurity aspect to it, you're dealing with, as you correctly point out, lay people that may not know when to go into executive session to discuss something.
Do advisory committees go into executive session?
They shouldn't, because they're not providing any information, any action.
They're not subject to open public meetings.
But
so they don't.
but what I'm saying is, if you made them subject to the Open Public Meetings Act, and a cybersecurity issue came up, there would not be anyone there other than themselves to guide them as to whether or not it's appropriate to go into executive session and what to discuss in executive session. So the solution to that in drafting this is that they're one, advisory, not subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. 2, because they're advisory, not subject to the Open Public Meetings Act, they can freely discuss cybersecurity if needed in their committee meetings, and it remains private. So it's simply, and it would remain until it's brought to the Township Committee's attention and you decide what to do with that information.
That's great. And we're basically creating additional resource for our town to take advantage of. Finding talent in our community and engaging them with our township business in the capacity of recommending us, advising us, not doing things for us, but recommending for us to do things better. So that's the goal.
I think, Bob, it's great that you support it. I think that any time that we kind of increase our ability to engage with the public and have them come in and even do something like a technology master plan is an important thing to do. There are other things that a technology committee can look at. I know in the borough they're currently looking at ways of reducing paper waste. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versions of this, and they're looking at doing a lot of online resources and looking to solve some of our paper waste through technology. They're also looking at putting forms online, driving a lot of things that you have to print out and take in and do these kinds of things, and driving those things online. And I think that if part of that discussion we can get citizens who are motivated, who have either tried to use some of the things or access the forms, or so there's another aspect to it too, to come up with a master plan, I think is very forward-thinking and very proactive.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay.
I have a question, further questions. Albert or Typhoon, what is the term of this committee? I thought, is it sunset automatically after the year, or is there a?
It's an
No,
ordinance.
It's not an ad hoc committee, it would be a standing committee.
It's a permanent committee?
Correct.
And the terms of these individuals on the committee is?
3 years with the first set of individuals appointed for staggered terms. But after the initial terms, which would be, I think, two 1 years, two 2 years, and then 3 years, then everyone else after those staggered terms is appointed for a 3-year term.
And in terms of the appointed by the mayor, I'd ask why they be appointed by the mayor and not by the committee itself, since they are advising the committee.
That's a policy decision.
And that's why I'm asking the mayor.
Yeah, that's, because that's my initiative, and I would be just fine if you want to have the advice and consent of the committee. That's perfectly fine with me. And
I might say, you can say it's your committee. All right, we already identified the fact that this was Bob's idea originally. That being said,
Bob's idea.
you are
That was
mayor for 1 year.
Mhm.
This is individuals, if this is going to be a permanent committee, it's not your committee. This is something that's going to be in perpetuity.
Yeah,
Therefore, I would argue and respectfully ask
Mhm.
that since this is supposed to be an advisory committee to the township committee should be the ones appointing these individuals, not the mayor.
Okay, so just like planning board, it's a mayoral appointment. You could be 1-year mayor. Planning board appointments are 4 years. So that argument doesn't really work.
Except for you're appointing
For-
all 7 of them right now. You can't go and appoint 7
Yeah,
members.
then it will be another 2.
And this
for
is
the
an
next round.
advisory
Let me
committee.
Let me finish. Please, look, let's
Don't
argue
bang the gavel
civilly.
at your
Gavel
committee mate.
because you know what? He doesn't let me speak. Let me finish. Then you can speak. Okay.
Have at it.
Now, and I'm appointing all 7, but after 1 year, there will be 2 other openings. The following year, it will be 3 openings. So every mayor, imagine there will be a new mayor every year. You were mayor 3 years. Mayor prior you was mayor for 2 or 3 years, and mayor prior you was mayor for 4 years, right? So, but moving forward, let's imagine the mayor is only for 1 year, right? So every mayor will make appointments every time. So this is not like every mayor will appoint 7 members. It's going to be 2 members next year, 3 members next year, following year, 3 members following year. So, and this is really the way
Who appoints the Colony Pool Advisory Committee?
that is, okay.
That's committee.
I
It's
don't know.
irrelevant.
Do you know, Craig?
I know the Open Space Committee is appointed by the Township Committee with the mayor designating the chairman. Colony Pool Committee, I think, is also by the Township Committee.
If it's an advisory committee, then I think that should stand up to what other advisory committees do.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that by opening up this process, I know, as you said, you've got the deluge of applicants, but I think it's been a huge help to kind of advertise and let people know about the openings, and would advertise this widely and would think with the advise and consent, I think it opens the process and makes it much more transparent as to who gets appointed to boards and commissions, which really hasn't been so much in the past.
When we're talking about a master plan, is that an air quotes master plan? We can't be talking about it in a master plan in terms of land use or anything like that. I mean, obviously, this is something that's not holding your feet to the fire master plan the way we have to hold our townships land use master plan. There's an air quotes master plan.
I was thinking about a witty reply with a Guitar Hero in it, but no, the answer is for the technology master plan. No, what it is it's a framework. So it would list basically all of our equipment at a certain point in time, as well as the software. It would start. You would also have a a recommended replacement policy, and then just other things that you would need to that you should be implementing over, over the course of a few years. And it takes into account everything as to where are your servers. So you look for your servers because you don't want them under sprinkler heads, and you want them off the floor. It's amazing what you find when you walk around looking at things, and you want to make sure that they're in your sensitive technologies in secured areas. So those are some of the components for the master plan. But it's also looking at your space, and then what are some of the issues that you're trying to convert over the next couple of years. So and how would you be able to do that? As an example, we have 4 rooms full of boxes related to the construction office. Those plans or the information in those boxes need to be digitized so that all departments have access to them, because we don't know what's in them. We know that there's a file with a block and lot for certain things. What's in there? You don't know until you open it up. So our goal would be to digitize those files so that all of the departments can have access to it, and then to keep that digitized. There are things that have to be kept in paper form for a long time, but in the future I would like to recommend to the Township Committee that we start to give back plans for houses. We're supposed to keep them by statute for 10 years. So we would have an aging program, and then we'd start to give them back after 12 years, but that would save us space. We'd be able to digitize those things, but our residents would be able to get the copy of their plans back. And so those are...
Sounds like you already got this covered,
Yeah,
Bob.
exactly. I don't see why we need to create a whole new layer of government of 7 people appointed by the mayor to figure out that we have to take files and give them back to the homeowners. I mean, it seems like we need a review. Maybe we need a technology audit. But to create a standing advisory board, to me, seems like overkill.
This is not creating another level of government, Karen.
Well, if you've
This
got an
is
ordinance here, it
engaging-
sure sounds like
Can I
it.
finish? Can I finish? Unfortunately, I never be able to finish my sentence. And this is not creating another level of government. What this is creating additional level of engagement with the residents of our town. They're volunteers. They're not paid employees. They're gonna come here, spend their own time taken from their families, from their works, and help this town. This is not additional government. They cannot let us do something or not do something. They will recommend
If you're
things.
handing out mayoral appointments
Handing
to
out.
a standing committee that's in charge of coming into our township and telling the township how to do things better because of any sort of volunteer spirit they have or expertise.
I'm open to anyone to tell us how to do things better.
And
But you're talking about forming a standard, you're talking about a committee here, you're talking about mayoral appointments across the board, and you're talking about coming in and telling our administration how to do things. That's
It's
another
not how
layer
to
of
do
government.
things.
And you're designating the township administrator to be at the meeting, designating a township employee to be at the meeting. What's the budget for this?
Designee.
What's
There's
the
no
budget for this?
It's not,
Is Greg going to attend free of charge? Are you going to be a volunteer as well? No, of
Minutes?
course not.
Who's keeping the minutes?
There's an expense to this.
no. I think you didn't read it.
I'm reading, the
Read
township
it.
administrator
So-
shall designate a township employee to serve as a
Designee.
member of the committee.
Designee.
Well, an
Yes.
employee,
Doesn't have to be
but an
himself.
employee.
As an employee, a township employee shall serve on the committee. Is this employee going to serve for free?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
members of the Township Committee, if I may, there's been some good dialogue on this. This is something I would like to suggest that we take some of these comments and we revisit this at the next meeting.
Sure.
What I wanted to suggest is we have our township planner is here arrived from another meeting. There's some items that we do have to discuss in closed session. So I would ask for the indulgence of the committee to let us review this, come and revisit this at the next meeting so that we can.
That works.
I have one final comment. I know when we've talked about this past, Albert, about creating advisory committees, we've also discussed doing it by resolution versus ordinance, and I'd like to consider that so it sunsets after a year and not as a permanent establishment.
All right, that's perfect. And now I know there are some residents that are also waiting to make comments. Let's move forward. And number 3 is the Fairmont Avenue Sidewalk Extension Project Grant. Any, John, I think,
Or Mr. Mayor, if you want, this was something that one of the committee members, Schwartz, had asked if we could put on the agenda for some discussion. This is the letter that was received by the township dated April 1st, where we received it April 1st. It was dated March 25th. But we have received a grant from the Department of Transportation for $219,000. The township had requested a grant of $250,000, and kudos to our township engineer for working on the grant. So we have this for review. The state will allow us to take up to 2 years before we have to award a contract for this. But that's basically the overview. We have a grant. We have requested $250,000. We have $219,000. If the township committee wants to evaluate this over time, we can put this into our 2020 budget, because we don't have, we didn't anticipate that the grant we would receive the award as early as we did. But that's just to set the stage for the discussion the township committee would like to have. And it's a matching grant.
so if you take this grant, $219,000, we'll have to match it. We have to put $219 to do the work for, let's say, $438,000. Okay.
So we would wind up, this would become a capital ordinance.
Okay. All right, any committee wants to discuss?
Well, basically, this means that we can't just go in and put down $219,000 worth of sidewalk, because that's what we got. This is what you're saying. When you say it's a matching grant, we can't say thanks and then build a $219,000 sidewalk. We still have a $400,000 sidewalk to build, don't we, John?
Yeah, just clarification. It's not it's not a matching grant from a perspective of 50%. We typically, this project was actually quite large for this grant program. The preliminary construction cost was about $400,000. What we typically do is try to put in a grant application that's in the 250 range. We typically try to request 80% of what the construction cost is, and then we contribute about 20% of the construction cost, because we offer 80 because you get some points with the DOT if you have some skin in the game versus just asking for 100%. So we typically ask for a smaller project. It didn't make sense to go with a smaller project, to do it in phases. It just made sense to apply all at once. So this grant application, when it was approved to be submitted by the committee, it was higher than what we usually, from that scale of a project. So the preliminary construction cost is $400,000. That's based on my initial estimate. It does require a retaining wall at the intersection because of the grade, at the intersection of Southern and Fairmount, because of the grades that are there. It accommodates a lot of restoration work on the properties, and again, it's a preliminary estimate. We would refine that during final design. But that's the basic background.
All right, any other comments?
And realistically, it's, the township share is not in this year's budget anyway, so we are talking about scheduling it for next year. Am I correct? So that's the time frame.
Yes.
Okay.
So given a 10% overrun anyway, we're looking basically at $200,000 of taxpayer dollars for this stretch of sidewalk, right?
Correct.
If the project ends up being $440,000, for example,
Well,
we end up having to come up with another $220,000 for this.
Well, the preliminary estimate is conservative, so I would hope that it's not going to be that much increase. In fact, I would hope that the ultimate proposal will be less. You know, I do try to be very conservative with the initial estimate, so this, you know, we don't have those other overruns. So I would hope that for over a year's period, it's not going to escalate too much.
Did we expect this grant to come in this soon or this year at all, or?
The grant announcements, the DOT is off their, you know, routine cycle of when they used to announce these grants. It used to be in the fall they would announce them, which would give the municipalities time to budget for it and plan for it, and they keep changing the time that they announced it. And in fact, I was surprised when it came out because I think I announced it in one of the committee meetings, is that usually they will go to the New Jersey Society of Municipal Engineers and vent out the grants with them, and I don't believe they did, so it was kind of quicker than I thought they were going to be announced.
So now that we have it, is there any reason why we cannot include it in the budget this year?
We would wind up having to amend the budget for our portion of the contribution. What we could do is we could look at this, we could vet it, and then towards the end of the, you know, towards the end of the summer, or, you know, in the fall, we would have a better handle on, you know, what's going to be the true cost for this, and then we would be able to probably do something, I don't know, in the late summer, or we could do something in November and have it ready to go to bid in the spring. You know.
What does it say that we've got 4 years under the bridge in trying to put the Lafayette Avenue sidewalk up? How do we all of a sudden be able to pull the trigger on this one?
Well, you know, this is a different grant program, and in fact, if the committee truly wanted to get this done immediately, you know, we could probably get it done in the summer. It can go that quick if you truly want to go that quick.
Who pays for all the engineering costs?
Exactly.
And all of the
But
landscaping
I'm
costs and the remediation costs of people's property and all of that?
My point is that this is not the federal grant program. If you wanted to pull the trigger, it's all local funding, so you govern it, and we just have to, you know, in order to
Because
get
we're
this
footing
done-
the bill anyway.
Yeah, you're flipping it, so it's not, you're not bound by all those other regulations with the federal government. So this is our typical municipal aid program, and we dictate how quickly we want to respond to it.
What do we have to do with
And-
Morris County, since these are two, we're talking about a county road in Fairmount, and we're talking about dumping pedestrians into the most dangerous intersection in town now, as was already pointed out by our residents here. That intersection is so dangerous, the idea of introducing additional pedestrians to it is horrifying to me. We can't just go and do that without talking to the county about auditing that entire intersection. It's their two roads, it's Southern Boulevard and Fairmount, and now we're talking about doing a retaining wall and introducing pedestrians into that. We have to bring the county in to do an audit of the safety of that intersection.
Yeah, any work that we do has to fully comply with NJDO requirements. That's a stipulation of the grant. So, you know, any design, any requirement we do must comply with those standards. That's a given. And so, from the county's perspective, they usually work very well with us. You know, the county's position, as long as they're not paying for it, they're fine with it, and as long as it meets their, you know, the
Because we're paying for it.
Exactly. So,
But now what
you're
about-
dealing with the counties usually, you know, they
And if you're talking about the change in grade, all of that has to be ADA as well, right?
Correct,
You're
yeah,
talking about Fairmount down the corner around the little white church.
That's why for this section, that's why it's $400,000. That's why there's, you know, grade issues and other issues of mitigating with the residents. And so that's why we did a similar section on Shumpike where it was half the cost. So this is an intense project to work to make the grades work, and that's why, you know, we budgeted accordingly.
So is there any reason, again, I asked why we would not proceed with it this year? We've heard from residents when we first introduced this last year, the support for it. We heard residents tonight for the support for it. If it can be done sooner than later, why kick the can further down the road and expose our residents to possible harm, injury, while utilizing and walking, you know, on the roadway right now if we can expedite this process? We've got the money in hand. We asked for $250,000. We got $30,000 short. I think it's still a win. We knew it was going to cost money. You know, I don't think you can put the price on, you know, the safety of our residents. So why would we not proceed?
What other monies do we have outstanding for the other sidewalk projects that have gotten approval to move forward with? Like, where are we in staggering this? I mean, I think this is a wonderful project. I think that, some Safe Routes to School has been working on identifying connectivity issues for a long time. And this has been on their list for a long time. And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity to connect. I'm just concerned, my only concern with doing it, with trying to change the budget and raise taxes this year to accommodate this, would be what's in the pipeline with the other sidewalks that are waiting.
Well, the Shunpike sidewalk that we had talked about all along from Falmouth down to Pine Street, I mean, probably that's a separate grant entity as well, but that's the one that people have been clamoring for even longer than this one. This one just came on our radar just now. But that Shunpike sidewalk
Is that by Cougar Field you're talking about?
from Pine Street at Cougar Field down to
That's Board of
Falmouth,
Education,
where the
don't you?
school,
Isn't that Board
no,
of
that's a
Education?
different, no, this
That's a
is
different-
Chatham
This is one
Township
that we've been waiting on for 3 years.
for a long, long time. And where does that one fit in?
We have, I know there's a lot of frustration regarding the safe routes to schools and the transportation enhancement, but the advantage of those grants is that, we also got a design assistance that paid for 100% of the design, and the grant pays for 100% of the construction. So, it's frustrating dealing with that program, but there is an advantage.
Because we're paying for 100% of nothing, John. That sidewalk along Shunpike from Falmouth to Pine Street is one that has been on our
Yeah,
radar
I think
for
the
a
lesson we
long,
learned
long
there is
time.
we had designed it ourselves, or had John's team design it, we would have been probably spent on the ground already.
Yeah, so we can go a lot quicker if we design it ourselves, but, there is money to be saved. And that's a frustration with that program, is that it's extremely slow. Even the Shunpike, I do not understand why the DOT has not authorized their consultant to start the design. I don't know. I just repeatedly send them calls and emails. And in fact, they implemented that design assistance program to try to expedite the program. It's not expediting anything.
So if all of a sudden we had 20 residents from that section of town coming to claim that sidewalk as being the most important one in town, as opposed to the one on Fairmount, where would we be getting right now? Because those people who live in that neck of the woods have kids walking to Washington Avenue School. We have elementary school students walking on that section of Shunpike every day to get to Washington Avenue School. They're elementary school kids. So when you talk about the importance of safety or not being able to put a price on it, I would submit to you that that's the one that should be expedited.
Yeah, I think we're beholden to, we got our hands tied, there's nothing we can do, we're waiting to hear from other people in terms of getting their act together.
There's nothing else for us to do
Yeah.
with that, and it's the DOT and their consultant that's dictating that schedule.
And so we're doing everything we can do from our perspective on those sidewalks. My question is, we're in a situation here when we can do something, we can expedite it, we can put the shovels in the ground this summer, so why don't we?
Well, do we have the dollars allocated?
If I may, this letter is basically arrived 10 days ago. So it's great that we know that we have $219,000 in grant funding. Let John and I look at the steps that are required. Let's revisit the project. We'll come up with what's the total cost, and we'll come up with a timeline so that we can come back to the Township Committee and say, these are the things that we have to do, these are the costs associated with it, and, here is a realistic timeline, for us doing something this year. Then you can make a decision. Does it make sense? But to make a decision like that tonight,
No.
it would be unfair to ask the Township Committee to do that. This was for informational purposes, and this will help us focus.
I have a question. When we were talking about engineering on Lenape Trail and talking about discussing it with the neighbors, talking about how important an assessment is to the neighbors because this is their property, or whether we were going to lay those improvements off across the township because it was a matter of drainage and homeowner protection. So we were talking actually about assessing the neighborhood certain expenses when it came to engineering the drainage in their neighborhood. What about assessments? We already had one of our residents there saying, what can we help do to defray the cost? Is it possible to take the 20 homes or however along, we're talking from Longwood down to the Southern Boulevard, Southern Boulevard intersection, and ask them for an additional assessment to help mitigate the imbalance between the grant and the ultimate cost of this?
That's a policy decision of the committee, how they want to fund those capital projects. Doing special assessments is a mechanism that.
We can discuss that, yeah, definitely we can discuss that. We can put it as a discussion item next time or whenever we can. I mean, that's fine.
So that's an additional point to talk about when it comes to
Yeah.
this particular grant.
As far as this particular item now, we're going to proceed with, we're going to wait to hear back from John and Bob. They will get back to us with some details as to timelines and costs and everything. Okay.
My main concern is ideally, we'd like to do this over the summer, less traffic, less impact. But my main concern would be is the schedule would be so condensed that are we giving the residents enough time to give feedback? That's I'm looking, that would be my main concern.
Okay.
It could happen, but I would.
Is there a possibility that they turn around and say, you didn't give us an answer and time's up and we're taking our money back?
That's 2 years from now.
2 years from now.
We have 2 years to.
And I think the residents who were impacted by this, between the introduction of this last year, we made a point to reach out to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Sending letters, we had
No,
people
we
here
had
tonight.
people who came out and spoke
We made an
against it as well.
intentional, action to get in front of the residents so they knew that we were talking about this. And we heard from folks.
We can take the very personal approach that we took with Lafayette and meet with every one of them. That's what we have done with sidewalk projects. And just a matter of coordinating that. I went out on more than one Saturday to meet with residents to accommodate them. So, we just, and again, that's what I just, that's just a component that, it would be tight. That's the only my concern. It's not impossible.
Are your weekend rates higher than the?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Can I ask you a question, John? Speaking with meeting individuals regarding the project, there has been turnover on the homes on Lafayette Avenue.
Possibly. Same, I'm sure, with Shunpike and Lafayette
And so there will be
even
turnover.
this location,
Yeah,
there may be
exactly.
turnovers. And that's why we do reach out multiple occasions, and certainly with this one, we're going to reach out. As soon as, what I would envision is that we would need a general concept plan so that they can see where the sidewalk's going, how it's impacting, and then we would want to meet with them.
Tracy, when you go to sell or transact in the real estate market and you're showing a house, do you tell people that there's plans for a sidewalk going through their front yard next year?
Not unless it's finalized.
That's not part of the package when you go and talk about the new HVAC system and, by the way, the driveway's brand new.
Oh, yeah,
but
you have
there's
to, if there's something meaningful, you have to disclose the fact that there's going to be a sidewalk. It's very welcome, because the people who are moving into town are very interested in connectivity. They're very interested in walking.
No, I'm just asking whether
So
people who
it's
have purchased the
kind of
homes.
the selling point of a house.
I'm asking whether people who have purchased the home in the interim would actually be aware of the fact.
If a house comes up for sale and we know that a project is going to start on September 1st, we tell them that this section of the property will become a sidewalk, and that has been a selling point. Sidewalks are a
No,
selling point.
I'm not asking about
Connectivity.
whether it's a selling point, I'm just asking whether it's
Well, that's
carpe
okay,
diem,
but I'm just giving
caveat
you
emptor.
additional information on the fact
Carpe
that
diem.
All right, I think we have discussed this, and we will keep discussing this at the next meeting. All right, next item is the time limits for public comment. Bob, you want to?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that's come up over the last several meetings, and I guess upon reflection, this is something that is something that I had brought up, because just observing the meeting in January that I was at, and then looking at the agendas, I asked the question, why aren't we, if we have a 3-minute time limit, why aren't we doing that? And then we have I believe it's a 30-minute maximum for each.
It's in the bylaws, yeah.
Each of the sections for the public meetings, and then I'm the one that started keeping track of it, and I apologize for causing some agita among the township committee, but
They don't get upset to you. I get
What?
upset. They get upset to me.
Okay, but that's,
But
so.
it's
so
good for
then
Bob to
this-
explain.
Then this came about, and then, Committee Member Ritter had asked if we could have a discussion about that, and so this is on the agenda, but
Sure.
I guess this comes back to me asking questions about why we're not enforcing the 3 minutes going back to January and February meetings, so.
Well, then I would just follow up with the fact that for all the years that I've been on the committee, never have we enforced this quote-unquote rule of the bylaw. And I just remind our committee members, our township committee meetings, it's the people's meeting. This is the one opportunity twice a month that our residents can come out, step to the microphone, voice their concerns, their opinions, positive and or negative, and we're here to listen to that. And if we're here an extra hour, an extra 2 hours, so what? Right? The fact that we only have, I can count the number of residents on my hand in this room tonight, it could say one of two things. One, that's great because no one's got anything to complain about, but it also could say, you know what, people aren't engaged enough. And I think people aren't engaged enough when they come to the microphone and they're told 30 seconds when they're in the midst of their stream of conscious of commenting. So I would suggest if we're going to follow the law or follow the bylaws, then I would suggest we amend them so that our residents have ample time to speak. I looked at other municipalities. Some have the 3-minute limit. I don't know if they abide by that. Others have 5 minutes. Others indicate, a 3-minute limit, but then they go back into the queue if they want to speak some more. So I would suggest either if we're going to follow the bylaws, we amend them, or we go back to the way it's been where we relax the enforcement of these rules and let our residents speak when they come to our meetings, because it's their meeting.
I would like to piggyback to what Kurt has said here on this. We've had people come forward, people who have not only been residents, but people who have driven a ways to talk about things that they care about. And when we were talking about the bear hunt, adding bear hunt to the deer hunt, we had people out, the line went out the door, and people spoke at length till they make sure that people don't always have their thoughts completely organized when they come to the microphone. These people had ample opportunity to try and organize their thoughts. When we were talking about the zoning for marijuana shops, people came and they spoke at length. When we were talking about replacing the skate park, only very recently, perhaps that's the meeting that you attended, where we had one particular woman probably talk for 15 minutes about the benefits of the outdoors and skating, or 20 minutes. It was a very long discussion on the importance of physical fitness and activity in one's recreational townwide program. The line for the advocates of the skate park went out the door, and people are engaged. And if you tell them, people who have something to say clearly have something to say. To tell them that they're limited to 3 minutes, to me, it's unfair for us to do that. That's my feeling.
Well, if the township committee wishes, these are your bylaws. So
I
if you wanna-
understand.
If you would like to make, if 5 minutes is more of a reasonable time,
I don't know.
then fine. But
Yes,
just,
great.
we need to, we would change the bylaws.
I did leave a copy of the current bylaws at your seats. The pertinent section is Article 4, Section 3, which does have a provision that the time limits may be extended at the discretion of the mayor. So it's at your discretion. The committee can leave it at 3 minutes, you can extend it to 5, but it does give the mayor the discretion to extend the total 30-minute limit and the individual 3-minute limit as circumstances dictate. And I would also like to bring the committee's attention to Article 3, Section 8. No new business will be considered after 11 p.m. Committee meetings will adjourn no later than midnight, so I would suggest taking that into consideration with how long you allow public comment to go on, so that other business can still get done in addition to allowing residents to speak.
Yeah, well, to that point, Greg, I would say again, for all the years that I've been in the committee, I think one instance we were inching towards the midnight hour, and I think that was an executive session versus, actual committee meeting. So I appreciate the clarification on Section 8, but let's be honest, right? The fact that we have residents who show up here, this many, I mean, this is a large attendance, right? We all commented tonight, like, wow, look at all the residents who are here tonight, right? The fact that we're considering, limiting their opportunity to step up and say what's on their mind, I think that's the wrong thing to do. So either we change it, or we just go back to the way it was, where we just relax it, where we just don't enforce it. To the discretion of the mayor, if someone's rambling on for 20 minutes, of course. But every instance we've had since we're putting time limits on these individuals, I think was totally unnecessary.
Well, the concern that I would have, if I had a recommendation to make, I would take away the discretion of the mayor, and you would stick to whatever the time limit is. Because what you're trying to achieve is uniformity and give everyone an equal opportunity to speak. If someone totally dominates the discussion and speaks for 20 minutes, well, what have they done? They've hurt the other residents because now they've limited their time. So it is an attempt to have uniformity in allowing everyone to speak for a given period. 3 minutes is a long time to state your point. So it's really one of uniformity. And if you're going to amend it, my own recommendation is to have a limit that you're comfortable with and enforce it. And remove the discretion of the mayor, because then you will have a person that says, I want to speak another 3 minutes. And the mayor then exercises his discretion and cuts them off, and that presents a problem. So really, it should be a fixed rule so everyone, the committee, the residents, the public, understand what the rules are. And if you understand what the rules are, and at every meeting, those rules are read, it's something that should be able to be followed. 3 minutes is a long time to speak.
Point taken, Albert. And then under that consideration, that I would recommend we bump it to 5 minutes and remove the discretion of the mayor. And then I would also somehow like the verbiage in here to say, if the public hearing is open for 30 minutes and we do not extend, if we're like up at 25 minutes and the person's already utilized your 5 minutes, they can go back in the queue until the 30-minute limit is up.
5 minutes is even longer than 3 minutes. Okay? And so and a mathematician on the side. And so if 3 minutes is a long time to speak, 5 is even a longer time to get your thoughts together and speak clearly and get your point across.
And I think we've seen, Albert, though, that people who've been up at the microphone, they've been cut off at 3 minutes. So yes, 3 minutes is a long time to speak, but quite frankly, when a resident is coming all the way here on any given night, sometimes they come prepared, sometimes they don't, sometimes they think of it on the fly, right? I think 5 minutes, the fact that we're saying, well, residents, you got 5 minutes, I think that's, that's
What's the difference between 3 and 5?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I'm not a mathematician either.
I think that probably the meeting that you experienced, Bob, was one that was hopefully going to calm down and atypical of what we're going to experience going forward. And we don't have a lot of residents show up. I mean, having come to these meetings for 11 years, writing for the newspaper, this is a huge crowd. So I think that if we leave it where it is, there's discretion involved in it. We can let people speak. We can answer questions. I think it's an important part of the process. We really rarely have people show up unless there's an issue like shooting bears or, things that really rile the community up.
Then what are you going to do in that situation? That's the question. When you have, and you've referred to it a few times tonight, a line out the door.
Right.
What are you going to do in that situation? So what you're suggesting is that when there's 1 or 2 people in the audience, you give them as much time as you think is appropriate. Are you going to extend the same courtesy to when you have a line out the door? And and that's where you're changing the rules from meeting to meeting. And that, I think, is something you should stay away from. It should be a consistent approach. So you can't say, this group was favored at this meeting, and that group was favored at that meeting, or this person was cut off, and someone given more time at the next meeting. So there's a consistency that you want to apply, and it's not whether you have 5 people in the room or 50 people in the room, it's how you treat all of the residents. Are you treating them in an equal and fair manner?
Or Albert, I appreciate that's the lawyer in you, right? But my argument is if it's not broke, let's not try to fix it. Everything's, I mean, yes, we've had the rules in here. I appreciate, yes, there's certain, I bet if we go through all our ordinances and all our rules here, there's a lot of stuff we're not following to the T here. That being said, you know what? It's worked in the past where we've let residents speak, where the mayor had the discretion of extending or just courtesy, being basically, all right, can you wrap it up? Versus 30 seconds, I mean, there's ways of doing it.
If in
And
fact
still
there
getting
is
our point across.
if in fact there is a 30-minute time limit per agenda item. And I don't recall where that came
The
from.
public hearing,
No,
public hearing
it's-
is limited to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's
Public
never been
hearing is
enforced
limited
either.
to 30
Hearing of
minutes.
citizens is limited to
Okay.
30 minutes.
So if in fact somebody
Theoretically, at least.
is commenting and their 3 minutes are up and there's somebody, or 5 minutes, let's just say we were gracious enough to extend it to officially 5 minutes, and there was another person or two in line, is it possible to put it in there that a person is able to come back to the microphone in deference to their fellow residents or fellow concerned spokespeople?
Again, this is a policy decision, not a legal decision, but if I had a vote, I would do away with a 30-minute limit. Because you want to hear people speak. You may have a deadline of 12 o'clock at night or whatever you do, because you all have day jobs and you work and you have to go to work the next morning. So if you're going to change, then that may be an area where you increase the time, allow people to speak once, and by the same token, not have a 30-minute deadline.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, if I may,
Greg, yes.
yeah, if I may back up Albert on that and show that my math skills rival his. With the 30-minute limit, if we were to up it to 5 minutes per speaker, luckily all 6 residents who bothered to show up tonight would get their full 5 minutes. That 7th person would be out of luck. So you may want to consider doing away with that 30-minute limit to allow, if you have that line out the door, if you keep it to 5 minutes, that way everybody gets a turn and they're not impeding on each other.
And I'll remind, there are 2 hearings of citizens. So if they're not heard in the first time, they might think about, over the course of the meeting, I want to say one more thing.
And that's precisely why they shouldn't be back into the queue, because everyone will have a second opportunity during the meeting.
Okay.
And this concept of, I yield my time to you, that is for the United States Senate. Okay?
Not for Fred Loloff.
There is no yielding of your time. You speak your 5 minutes, and you get 2 opportunities at different sections, and as was correctly pointed out, in the second part of the meeting, you can speak about any topic that you want, even a topic that's already been voted upon and discussed.
All right,
So we have a motion moved and seconded. Just to repeat, so we were on the same.
Well, this was only a possible ordinance or
This is
resolution,
a
so.
discussion, to cut off discussion so we don't keep going forever here on a 5-minute question. But to extend it to 5 minutes.
Article 4, Section 3, delete the first sentence, hearing of citizens will be limited to 30 minutes. Eliminate that sentence.
Eliminate the 30 minutes.
Second
Extend it to 5.
sentence, after that one's eliminated, each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes. And then delete the last sentence, these time limits may be extended by the discretion of the mayor.
Well, I would argue not to change that, because I think that, I don't think anybody expects this to be an accurate to the second process. And I think that it would actually, lawyers aside, I think on a practical level, it would be a good thing for the mayor to be able to let someone finish a sentence. And your goal is to be respectful of residents and let them finish their thought. So,
Deputy Mayor, respectfully, I don't think that's what that means. I think
What does it mean?
if there is courtesy extended on both sides, and someone is in the middle of a thought or hasn't finished, no one is going to cut them off.
Okay, and
So, but where I have a concern about is saying, you have 5 minutes, you have 3 minutes, somebody else has 10 minutes. That is the discretion that is of concern here. So I think just simply allowing the natural thought to be completed is fine. So we're not going to sit here with a time watch, but there should be some indication that the person should wrap it up.
absolutely, I agree.
Well, I think it's possible to read the blitz if you see 10 people in line on a topic, to make sure that you stridently suggest that their time is limited to 5 minutes. I think if we make it abundantly apparent that because there's 10 people in line, it would really be fair to their fellow residents if they limit their comments to 5 minutes.
Bob, would you be comfortable with that, since this was kind of the issue that you brought up and wanted to pursue?
Yeah, so what I was looking for is consistency. So if that's what it is, that's a policy decision for the Township Committee, that's fine. 5 minutes is a fair amount of time for the public to speak. That has been the rule in several other municipalities. And so long as we're consistent, that's good. And I think removing the 30-minute limit, I think that's important. I think that will assist the Township Committee, and it will assist us in managing the agenda.
Okay.
So I'm
So-
comfortable with 5 minutes.
Sounds like we're going to change.
Right, well, you're not going to do that tonight.
No, not tonight.
Okay, I think we got the sense of it. We'll prepare an amendment for the next meeting.
We'll look at it.
And you can look at it and see if you're satisfied with the wording. I agree, it's a simple amendment, but don't want to do it until you've had a chance to look at it.
Okay, great. So now, the hearing of citizens, please keep your comments to...
From the
keep your
existing
comments-
rules.
Wait. Please keep your comments to as long as you want. 3 minutes for Dan.
Yeah, Dan Miller, 465 Green Village Road. And, I know you guys are somewhat amused with this, but, you do serve at the behest of the public. I mean, Kirk couldn't have put it, more eloquently. Like I said, election time, you all go around and you shake hands and you tell us how much you care about us, and then when we come up here, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to do that. And I will say something about the issue is I agree with Mr. Kelly that you need mayoral discretion, and the reason why is the bear hunt, issues regarding the swamp, different issues. I've been coming to these meetings since the 1980s, okay? I have survived many a committee here, okay? And I've seen people treated with respect, and I've seen committees treat people with disrespect, okay? But when you do have bigger issues, I've seen lines out here. I remember when the meetings were up at the little red schoolhouse, which is the museum now. So, you do have those times, and you do have those times where you may have to reverse and say, we're only going to have time to let people talk for 3 minutes because there's 100 of you. So, you have to look at it both ways. But not engaging the public, certainly from my view over the years, leads to an empty room, okay? It leads to people saying, I'm not going to get anywhere. I'm going to go there and talk to them, and they've already got their minds made up, okay? And it's the transparency thing again. And I will talk to that one more time with the Technology Advisory Committee. You're forming a committee. Any committee that's going to be advising and making recommendations to the Township Committee that quite possibly, may become law, through ordinance or whatever, or policy, should be subject to the same rules as any other committee or board of this township. I don't think it's too much to ask that it's transparent, that the public can attend, okay? That the public knows what this committee is doing, okay? The public's welcome at an open space meeting, they're open at a planning board meeting, they're welcome at a zoning board meeting. All of a sudden, we're gonna take this particular committee and say, you're not welcome. That's not right. And the sunshine laws were put into place a long time ago for very good reason, so that things aren't done, in darkness, that they are done in sunlight, hence sunshine laws. That's what we're here for. We're not here to pull the wall over anybody's eyes or say, oh, the public can know about this, but they really can't know about that. That's not what government's all about. I mean, when I read the Constitution, which I don't know if any of you ever have, I just recently visited Monticello, Montpelier, okay? These things were written for a reason, and they were to protect people like us from people like you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else?
Christine Baird, 375 Fairmount Avenue. I just want to be clear on a few things. Is there any chance that we would not accept this grant? I know that this happened almost once with the Lafayette Avenue sidewalk where, we went through the trouble of applying for the grant, got the grant, and then there was, after the fact, questions about, do we want this? And that just seems like a big waste of effort and disappoint a lot of people who, thought that they had achieved something.
Albert, can you answer that
Oh,
from
yeah,
a logistical perspective? Can you answer Mrs. Bear's question?
On the grant,
On whether the grant can be accepted or turned back?
Yeah, turn
I think that was explained by the administrator that the answer is yes.
So after 2 years, if nothing is done or you just don't get
Or even right now,
Well,
whether
you
we
have to accept the grant and carry it out.
And who,
This is an award, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was an award that was made to the municipality.
but for Mrs. Bear's question, who has the opportunity to say, yes, we accept it, or no, we do not accept the grant?
The township committee.
The township committee.
But again,
So by applying for it, doesn't mean you're going to, I would think the DOT would think you are going to accept.
They're not going to force it upon us if the township committee votes
would
not
say-
to accept it.
and there's as was discussed, there's a second component to the grant. The grant is not 100%. There is money that has to be funded by the township to complete the sidewalks.
Which
And
the township knew going in, and they decided what the amount would be that they would ask for, correct? Okay, so, and then I am just curious about the intersection aspect to it. Is any effort to make that a crossable intersection part of this grant? Or part of the installation of the sidewalk?
That's been,
No, you're bound by whatever the grant application was.
it's just for the sidewalk, not the intersection.
Okay.
John, does any of the sidewalk wrap around the corner or just go right to the intersection, or can you describe?
The sidewalk would go to the intersection, and there would be a crosswalk established to continue across Southern Boulevard and continue.
Oh, there would.
the
I mean, that
sidewalk
would,
on Fairmount.
as long as it's well-signed and people are aware now that this is a more active area, for pedestrians, and because it's very well used. I mean, there are a lot of walkers, you'd be surprised, and everyone's in the street. But, that would just be a concern that it would be a safe
Right, well,
crossing.
and to our neighbor's point, when these motorists go rushing right past a
My cat
school
was
bus,
hit by a car right there.
you can't legislate stupidity, you can't legislate ignorance of the law. If people are choosing to blatantly drive by a school bus with its red lights flashing, there's really, aside from having a police officer right there on the other side, what are you going to do? You're still relying on the rationality and the sanity of the motor vehicle drive in public.
Right, but if it does become an intersection where, there are going to be more people, more signage, more, I mean, I guess I don't know if they'll install lights, or if there are crosswalks, that there's something that indicates, people will be walking here, so.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just as a
Sure,
as a
please.
clarification, with this grant, we have a happy dilemma because we received the grant when we were looking at the grants that were outstanding, we anticipated receiving a notification about whether we received the grant or not in November. And so it's come several months earlier. So now that, that was a pleasant surprise, and now it gives us the opportunity to look, see what kind of lead time we need, and then, try and identify a timeline, what work has to be done, and what funds we're going to need to complete the project. So, our engineer had also said this was we expected to get this later in the year. So our goal is to come back to the Township Committee with a plan and see if we can, what can we do to see if we can implement this grant this year. But we will come back to the Township Committee with that, at one of the next few meetings.
And do we know if the grant for the sidewalk on the other side, so it would be like the north side of Southern going down, so you would, there's a sidewalk that goes pretty much down to Southern Boulevard School, because my son, we used to have to try to cross over to be able to walk down on the south side of Southern Boulevard to get down to the elementary school. But, the idea was getting across Southern from the church, so the church to the other side of Southern. So I was told that there's a grant that's been applied for a sidewalk on the, I guess it would be the north side of Southern Boulevard.
Is that the one that goes to Runnymede?
Well, Runnymede, there is a sidewalk that goes to Runnymede on the other side. Oh, you're talking about the asphalt?
I think
Which
it goes
direction?
across across Southern, and then connects with the sidewalk in the borough. John, can you clarify where the sidewalk, it ends at Southern, crosses, then continues down Fairmount?
That's this grant that we got, yeah, right.
Yeah,
But I
She's
thought that was
asking
the
if there's
second one.
another grant. I don't believe there's a grant for, you're talking about where the church is here to connect it this way down to on Southern Boulevard.
Because there is a sidewalk also on that side that takes you into Southern Boulevard School, but it's just kind of, it picks up a little bit
Yeah.
underneath Lafayette.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't believe we don't have a grant
Oh,
for
okay,
that.
okay. I thought,
But I would encourage you and your other fellow residents to keep an eye on the agenda and come out for the next couple of meetings to continue to voice your concern and interest for the sidewalk.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come? All right, so now we don't have any other residents to come up, and then we'll have to go to now executive session, and we have a resolution to do that.
Yes,
Greg,
Mayor,
would you
it's
please?
Resolution 2019-P-05, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded, whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation in the matter of the Township of Chatham for a judgment of compliance of its third round housing element and fair share plan docket number MRS-L-1659-15. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion and in any event when appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13. The committee will come back into regular session and may take further action. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
I have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter? Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
And Mayor Selin?
Yes.